puts it in! Rocco Batch gets 6!
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
Iamaleava, end zone, diving attempt. It is caught for a touchdown. Chris Brazel puts Tennessee back on top.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Cranks it up, goes downfield, and gets it complete. Here goes Restrepo again, spinning his way, kept his balance inside the 5.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
There was no defensive pass interference.
Oh, my goodness.
The ball will be at the 9-yard line.
Kirby Smart did not believe it. So Bill Lamagna, a discussion. They have changed the call, which is an enormous moment in this game.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
How about that spin move? Bryson Daly, and the Daly double across the goal line.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go on 365 Sports on this Wednesday afternoon as we get you past the halfway mark of the weekend, or towards the weekend. Big 12 Media Days today up in Kansas City. Men's basketball, women's basketball. We'll hear from Kendall Cal, who lives in Kansas City, covers the Big 12, and he'll join us later in the show today in the 5 o'clock hour. Mike Craven, Dave Campbell's Texas football. Also, today, KC Keeler, head coach at Sam Houston State. They got a win last night. They're bowl eligible in their first year of FBS. We talked with them a year or two ago when they were going through that transition, and we'll have that too. Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, Emery Winter is here. And also today, Jack McKenzie, the maestro, running the mothership here on 365 Sports. We'll have the pod today. That's the Bowlesby pod, Cincinnati, BYU, UCF, and Houston. And Zach Gelb joins us and Paul's Top 5. So there are very few programs in college football that leave a conference and then have success immediately. There have been some. We also know that there have been some that changed conferences, and they have been a dud. My favorite team is an example. Oklahoma appears to be maybe in that group, although it's still too early to tell, even if it's just the full year and they go 4-8. There's some. A&M. The first year beat Alabama. Johnny Manziel won a Heisman Trophy. But there are schools like Oregon this year, schools that move into the conference, and not all of them, and very few of them have immediate success. And so that leads us to Ralph Rousseau and theathletic.com. And by the way, Paxton had sent me a note about Barry Switzer and how Oklahoma and Lincoln Riley did not want the SEC. I'll have that too. But this was an article from today already about USC and Oklahoma. Riley, who left, Venables, who replaced him, and both of them are right now really in a bad way.
You know, Oklahoma got so gutted by Riley leaving talent-wise. I mean, when you lose Caleb Williams, you lose all the guys they have, it's really hard to go back in and replace that. And they got really lucky with Dylan Gabriel. But then Dylan Gabriel leaves himself, and they have not – and they just couldn't replace it all. And they have, you know, both their best wide receivers have been out for most of the season, dealing with various injuries off and on. So they have no explosives in offense. It's weird to me that they don't have a running back. And it's also weird to me on the Lincoln Riley side of things that he had all this stuff, all this momentum heading into USC, and then it just kind of hit the wall because of his complete ignorance of the defensive side of the ball. And now while they're better on that side of the ball this year, they're just not as talented as you think they would be. So the intersection of these two things happening, I mean, I guess basically they're both half a team because of that.
Maybe they should get back together.
Yeah.
I mean, when's the last time Lincoln Riley was at his best? So he was at Oklahoma, leaving in the middle of the night on a jet with his assistant coaches under the fog of night with, I think it was Eddie Radosevich and whatever other number of Sooner media that were creeping in the bushes, taking videos, the grainy videos of them, loading their bags onto the cart or whatever it was. I remember that like it was yesterday. And, then on the flip side of things, it's been kind of a blur in a bad way these last couple of seasons. And I wish the memories were grainy like that old video, and I wish it was somewhat in the fog of night and not directly on my TV screen every Saturday, just how poor the performances have been throughout this entire season. So, yeah, they were a really good pairing, and I guess one of them thought that they, needed to change of scenery. I said at the time, people can complain all they want to about Lincoln Riley. If you're complaining about the fashion in which he left, like, that's one thing, and I agree with that because he had a pretty beneficial relationship with Oklahoma. So to kind of do it the way that he did crossed people the wrong way, and rightfully so. But I did not blame the man at all for wanting to go live in Southern California and be a millionaire out in that area versus doing it in Norman, Oklahoma. Like, and sometimes you just want new challenges. Maybe he grew up a USC, there's all these things. Like, so I didn't blame him for leaving Oklahoma in general. The style of it was poorly done, but yeah, he was great there. They were great under him. The big complaint was, we've got all of these Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks every year. Every year we make the playoff or play for a big game, but we don't ever win that final big game, and we don't ever have, like, Heisman's on defense. That was the issue. You scored 60, but you gave up 61. So, I don't know what the point of this exercise is other than just piss me off as an Oklahoma fan of how good it was. But, they were better off together.
That's an article from today. Paxton had sent me a note, and we'll get to more of this article in a moment, that Barry Switzer, who, of course, knows a little bit about Oklahoma football. Remember what
SEC legend Barry Switzer.
Yeah. Remember now what he said when the announcement was made. Oklahoma and Texas released, like, hey, okay, are you sure? He didn't know about what was going on. Not that he needed to, but he's pretty powerful, even has been forever since he coached. Lincoln Riley didn't know anything about what was going on. And I am probably in the minority when I say this, because I know it's easy to kick somebody when they're down or when it looks like they may have a little bit of, like, fleeing. I do not think that Lincoln Riley was afraid to compete in the SEC, because in the year that he left and during that time, Oklahoma was still good. So I'm against most everybody that, like, he's the chicken, you know what, he wanted to leave. I don't think that. Because, and now guess what? He's in a conference that's pretty good, deep now with what he had at the Pac-12, and now also adding in Ohio State, Penn State, et cetera, into that mix.
I mean, if you want to say he's a bad cook, that's fair. You got proof of that, but I've never seen real proof that he was scared of the SEC. I think that's what everybody who's an SEC fan likes to portray. I don't think the man was scared of the SEC, but, the whole, he's in the Big Ten, but the twist on that is, he didn't know the Big Ten was going to turn into what it turned into. So you can still make the case that the angle that he was, running away from competition was the correct one. But I don't personally believe that either. I mean, I can believe it to the extent of, not that he's scared of playing any of those teams, but, like, what's my best shot to win a natty? Right. He took that, but he wasn't like, oh my God, I can't play Alabama every other year. I'm scared of that. Yeah, I don't buy that being scared. I buy that he tried to take the most enjoyable and easiest path to a national championship that he could, which was going to Southern California and playing out there. And it's so far not worked out his way. That's what I believe. All
right, from Switzer in an interview with Dan Dockich, I think it's because Lincoln wasn't involved in the decision to go with the SEC. They didn't even ask him about it. And the next thing, he was like us. We heard about it too. And you know what? I do think, again, I think people like to get kicked when they're down. I don't know how many football coaches were actually given much heads up about leaving. You would think so, because that's where all the revenue is and the reason you would leave for another conference. Paul, Lincoln Riley, Oklahoma was fine. They were not fine. Craig's fine. They were good. And he would have had yet Caleb Williams for another year or two, and he would have had somebody else. What was the guy? Malachi Nelson or what? He would have been fine. Now, would they have ever been able to fix the defense? That remains to be seen. But, man, both programs are in really dire straits because Oklahoma, we know what they're in and who they have to play. Ole Miss this week, and USC just lost to who was it, Maryland?
Yeah.
Yeah, and now a lot of former players are barking a little bit.
Yeah, apparently, it's not always – the grass isn't always greener. And Craig said what he thought was the easiest and most fun path to the college football playoff at USC. But, and you got to be confident in your abilities, but USC has limitations in and of itself as a university. Otherwise, it wouldn't be as hard as a job as it's been since Pete Carroll left. I mean, Lane Kiffin's failed there and got fired. Steve Sarkisian didn't make it because of personal reasons. Clay Helton didn't make it. I mean, so it's not like there's a bunch of coaches that haven't worked out there, right? So it's not an automatic thing at USC. And I know that you think, okay, we're going to bring this over here. Well, and I always just thought that the quarterbacks would just kind of roll to him, but yeah, it's not necessarily that. Like the offensive line isn't very good. They don't have a good kicker. There's a lot of things going on at USC, which is something I didn't think would be a problem for him. But look, in the new era, you can't just he can't just pick up the phone and say, "Hi, prospect 1, USC," and them go, "Oh, cool, Southern California. I'll meet a lot of chicks and Will Ferrell will be there and all that." No, it's harder than that.
I think even Switzer said, correct me if I'm wrong, when he was on with us even 2 or 3 years ago when we brought it up, is that he's not so sure they made the right decision, that Oklahoma made the right decision.
Okay, yeah, I mean, that's I didn't agree with it at the time, but here's the deal with that. You couldn't turn down all that money. Yeah. You can't turn down all that prestige and history and all that.
I mean, I'm saying he said he doesn't think they made the right decision football-wise.
No, I totally agree with that. But that's the thing is you didn't have a choice really. It was either chase the money or risk that Texas is going to get $50 million per year and just TV rights more than you get.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah.
I mean, what are you going to do? And here's the thing. You don't have the Texas alumni. You have more national championships. You have more Heisman. You have a lot more of the actual accolades, which sometimes people forget that in the conversation. They put Texas above, and it's actually look at the things that are meaningful, and Oklahoma wins nearly every category. If you want to start going, well, we got more Doak Walker, 3, okay.
Or we win the overall series.
Let's do Heisman 6-2 or 7-2, whatever. So 7 national titles to 4. You can do that all day. Big 12 titles, forget about it. But as good as they are as a program, they don't have the hundreds of thousands of millionaires as alumni that the seemingly endless ATM of money that Texas has and the hordes of gold they're sitting on. Oklahoma's got limitations. And in this era where all of a sudden, you're paying players, they didn't have a choice. It was stay in the Big 12 and make the same money and be down tens of millions of dollars yearly just in TV alone to your arch rival and others who are climbing past you or are already above you in an Alabama's case, but sit and win a bunch of Big 12 titles and have an easier path but not make money. And this game, it always has and always will revolve around money. The decisions are made not on accolades half the time, but on money. So yeah, I mean, it's a very easy thing for everybody to say, I thought that was a bad idea. I thought it was a bad idea. I said it on this show multiple times. I didn't like the idea of them joining the SEC from a winning and prestige standpoint, but they didn't join the SEC for necessarily the same amount of wins. They joined it for the prestige, but most of all, and a lot of it was the prestige, but as much as anything, they joined it for the money along with that prestige. So that was the cost of doing business. It's you might have chopped off your legs at the knees in order to live in the penthouse and survive, quote unquote. But
yeah, Nebraska did the same thing.
Exactly. But they wouldn't change their mind.
No, they wouldn't.
No.
And somebody they should go back and join the Big 12. Why? They're getting $30 million, $40 million more than most anybody else except now with the SEC.
Yeah, that's the thing. I've had that conversation with relatives about, and we all agree, we think their best bet was to stay in the Big 12, but it's just not a realistic conversation. I mean, it's just not. Everybody could see that coming. Hey, guys, guess what? It's going to be harder to go to Alabama and Ole Miss and Texas still and throw in A&M and throw in Georgia and throw in, on and on. versus, doing what you've been doing and obviously dominating for a long time. Now, they didn't dominate their last couple of years in the league. They were still, but people act like they were like 6-6 or something. They were still pretty damn good. Like, they were still in the upper echelon. They just didn't win it their last couple of years. But yeah, I mean, if it was all about winning, then the Southwestern Conference would still be alive, and the Big Eight would still be alive. So it's not about winning. It was about money and prestige, and they chased it for better or worse. For Texas, it looks like it's for the better. For Oklahoma, I'm sure in some ways it's better. The home games are more exciting, but no, the winning it definitely got dinged by that choice.
Oklahoma, when he was there, he won 12. The last 5 years, or the 5 years, 12-2, 12-2, 12-2, 9-2, 10-2. And remember, I think even in 21, when Baylor played Oklahoma State, that game with Oklahoma, Caleb Williams was bringing him back. That was an incredible game at Stillwater, I believe. And they almost got into that championship game, which would have been a rematch. But because of the way it ended, Baylor got to play Oklahoma State. 11-3 his first year at USC, then 8-5, now 3-4. And then that, of course, that's USC with Riley and now Venables, and what Oklahoma faces the rest of the year looks really, really, really tough.
Yeah, now they carry in an offense that is completely worthless, and they're going against Josh Heupel and Jeff Lebby, and I don't know, the offense they saw a lot in the Big 12 and actually thrived against, and had their own vision of under Riley. So yeah, man, they risked a lot, but I think that you look 50 years down the road, they'll be glad they made the choice, even if it means that they've been passed up in some of the all-time categories, because they'll still be sitting on a fat stack of cash with no worries about their survivability. Whereas, that's more of a question mark. If you had not made that choice, you getting passed up, that was a guarantee, if anything, that you would be getting passed up and lapped by some of your peers. So it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of a thing in some ways. But Riley, on the other hand, that's a whole different case, and that's like a separate conversation about what he's chasing and what he chose himself.
Okay, USC fit in the Pac-12. I mean, they were the Pac-12 for a long time. What he did in the Big 12, it fit. Does what he wants to do? I mean, Oregon runs that wide open offense, right? I mean, doesn't what he's doing? There's a lot of Indiana's trying to do it.
They fit wherever they put them. Look, they fit in the ACC if you put them there schematically. Where they don't fit, and this is the thing that's hit both these teams that doesn't make sense, is neither of them have been able to acquire the talent they thought that they would. They are USC's slightly ahead of them, I guess, if you would say, in the recruiting wars, but not far. And neither of them are very talented teams right now. Like, Oklahoma's got a really good defense. USC's got some good parts, but would you look at these teams and go, holy cow, look at all these guys? That's what Oklahoma and USC at their peak used to have. You're like, holy cow, these rosters are loaded. They're not loaded anymore. They're not. And Brent Venables hasn't been able to get the guys in there, and that's what's ultimately going to put him under the gun. And Lincoln Riley, what's going to put him under the gun is, we were supposed to get the next Caleb Williams. It was supposed to be this train of quarterbacks that you had going at Oklahoma, and all these people were going to come wanting to play for the next Heisman Trophy winner. Well, that's not necessarily happening. And even when you had the Heisman Trophy winner, the defense was so terribly awful that his last year, you went 7-5. And the only reason you won 7 games is because he's superhuman. So outside of having that superhuman quarterback, what else can you do? Because now everybody's – it's not a level playing field, but it's not as unequal as it used to be when, if you can give $1 million and the other place can give $1 million, if they like that place better, they're going to go to that one. So it's a different world.
I'll tell you this, the same teams are going to end up playing for the national title in the end, because you could have the group of 5 school, and that's the how they position it, whether it's going to be a Boise State or a Memphis or a UNLV or whoever it might be. And then you're going to have the conference champions, and then you're going to have a lot of at-large. And we can discuss how many are going to be from what conference, whatever. But in the end, college football, this is the best. I am not so sure this hasn't been the best, most exciting, and in some cases topsy-turvy first 8 weeks of a college football season I could ever remember. And in the end, it's still going to be those who are bigger, better, faster, stronger, deeper, because you got to win more games now. 3 to win a national title, maybe 4. But has this not been maybe a little bit different than we thought? that it was just going to be the big boys separate even more. Maybe they do at the end, but during the regular season, this has been freaking hilarious. I love it. This has been great.
There's two reasons why. And I do think the big boys will separate because I don't think everybody's built to go win 3-4 playoff games.
That's what I just said, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think Boise, as fun as they are as a story, I don't think they're built to go beat SMU in the first round and then go host Tennessee and then turn around and go beat Miami and then you go like that's just I don't think that's realistic. I don't think very many teams are going to be built for that. So I think that's where you see the separation and this conversation changes. But the regular season, for as much as people said it wouldn't matter as much, it matters a great deal because of the expanded playoff, because more teams are alive, and also because Nick Saban's gone. That's what makes it refreshing and interesting, in my opinion at least. He's still around. He's still a commentator, but this like just set in stone thing that was there for 20 plus years that never moves but an inch one way or the other, but it's always pretty much in the same spot that everybody's got to drive over, past, or whatever. It's inevitable. It's finally not inevitable. It's not immortal. It's not unbeatable. It's already taken a couple losses, and it might not even be all that relevant by the end of the year, and that's really refreshing. Yeah, I don't care how many fans Alabama has. It's really refreshing that there's not this same storyline of Saban and the Tide and everything that comes with that. Look, if it was still around, I wouldn't complain about it because it was a great thing in its own way. But the fact that it's out of the way and it's opened up the floodgates for more teams just in that conference to feel like they have a shot, much less the entire country, it's refreshing. It's refreshing to not see Saban on the Alabama sideline taking up their usual spot.
With all due respect to Vandy, and what a great win that was for the program and Pavia and all the stuff that's going on with Coach Lee, but that's the kind of game that Saban, after the win against Georgia or whoever it was, would have made his players feel like they were like garbage. That he would have been harder on them after that game, and you hear or you some trickling that maybe they were a little bit loose, and that's not the takeaway from Vanderbilt because I'm not saying they wouldn't have won if Saban was there, but those are the games he didn't lose. Not after the first couple of years. Those are the games they didn't lose. So just a thought. There's a couple of comments on that from today in the article from our friend Ralph Rousseau.
Yeah, but I do think like Saban being out of the ecosystem now changes everything.
Would that be like if Mahomes retired?
Yes.
Yeah, because
which I'm almost rooting for at this point too because the NFL's getting really boring.
Saban is a single, like there's not going to be another Saban. There's not another Brady. There's not another Mahomes. Like they're singular talents. So you can't nobody could go out and they tried by hiring his assistants, but nobody can go out and be like, you're the next Nick Saban.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work that way. You're Nick Saban now. Well, it's not like there's some kind of magical scepter that gets passed from the next Saban to the other one. So because he's out of it, there's going to create more parity in the SEC alone because there's going to be somebody who steps into that, each year where maybe Alabama was. And there's more parity overall because there were a lot of guys who would go and sit and wait at Alabama because they want to play for Saban, but now we'll go other places because Nick Saban's not there. I'm not going there. So
yeah, I think it's the winning. I think it's also just the fact that everybody looked to him as some sort of figurehead.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, what does Saban think? He was always this above standard of every other coach. Well, now it's an even playing field. No matter how hard Kirby Smart's trying to be the new Saban or whatever and be that guy that is like the beacon of coaching in college football, he's not that guy. Nobody's that guy right now. Nobody is. I don't know that anybody's even close to being that guy because Kirby can win all he wants to, but I don't think people respect him the way they respect Saban. Not yet, at least. So they're not going to look at him like Kiffin's not going to look at him the same way he looked at respectfully at Saban, even if he trolled him from time to time. They're not going to just sit and listen to Kirby Smart because, you're the guy. You get to sit on the throne because you've won the most games here of late. That's not how it works. Saban had a different layer to him. And so, yeah, the guy who everybody looked to or everybody listened to or everybody waited to hear from is just on the sidelines like everybody else, commenting like everybody else. And it's interesting, but it's not like ruling the sport the way it felt like he was basically ruling the sport at the end. And that to me is the most refreshing thing. And the playoff, which I know we might be cursing in about a month because there's 7 SEC teams or, whatever and I'm obviously embellishing slightly on that, but the whole aspect of team's ability to win 3 or 4 games, like, yeah, we might be poo-pooing the playoff in about a month, but I don't think it's taken anything away from the regular season. And if anything, it's made it more exciting to me this year.
Well, I mean, also the records of former Saban assistants that went on to coach everywhere else and play against him, and finally what Kirby got him, and not many others have done that along the way. It is Big 12 and women's basketball media day in Kansas City. Here is a picture of the men's coaches lined up. There's 16 of them. There's a lot there. There's you pick your favorite coach. He's in that picture. There's the Jerome Tang connection at K-State. Obviously, Scott Drew at Baylor. McCaslin at Texas Tech. There's Bill Self, KU, among many others. Jamie Dixon at TCU. I'm not going to go through them all, but that was today.
You were about to.
That's 4. You know, it's one. If I don't mention all of them, and I'm done now with 4 because I was just told to be done, and I needed to be. Somebody, well, why didn't you mention?
Yeah, whatever, yeah.
So there you are. There's the snapshot. All of them want to kill each other, beat each other, and all of them are pretty damn good. Kendall will join us at 5:20 or so. We'll have a couple of other notes from what was said today at Big 12 Media Days.
Can you imagine somebody being so paranoid that if you just don't mention their coach you also don't mention like 11 others, that they somehow think that you not mentioning their guy specifically.
Oh no,
was that's to me just I think you need to log off and step away for a little while.
I do high school football a lot, and I every weekend have an honor roll in both the greater parts of East and Central Texas, and I will call and text and contact and email coaches, skim box scores, and I'll have sometimes 80 to 100 names, and it's the one person that will call or text me, and they usually text me, how come you didn't have? Because your coach didn't turn them in, and and I allow members of the site to also let me know about Chris Smith, who ran for 300 yards. It's really frustrating, but I just don't even. Okay, LSU and A&M. Garrett's not here today. He's going to be at the game on Saturday in College Station. How about this note? The times that both teams have been ranked inside the top 25, LSU is 8-0 in those meetings between the Tigers and the Aggies.
I'm not surprised about
this. And I don't know if
this.
that means how many were higher or lower. It doesn't matter. They're both ranked 8-0.
So, since this rivalry has gotten kicked up again, and I don't know if it's like a rivalry on any kind of
rivalry the SEC manufactured when A&M joined the conference. Yeah.
But.
Well, they used to play
each other every year back in the day.
I'm kidding.
And then R.C. Slocum came along at A&M, and Curly Hallman came along at LSU, and LSU lost like 2 or 3 in a row to A&M. And they're like, look, this is supposed to be like a once in a while you get us when our quarterback is hurt kind of a thing. We don't like this new era where you win. And then it went away for a very long time. I think they played in a Cotton Bowl, and LSU won that game. You were on your deathbed, Smokey.
In 2010.
Yeah, you were very sick.
You got to pick and choose which one of those times I've been on my deathbed lately. Yeah.
But that was the only time they played. And then the SEC, for A&M's benefit and not necessarily for LSU's, because LSU already had theirs, was like, here's your biggest rival now. And A&M fans were kind of there for it, but LSU fans were like, yeah, we don't like you, but you're like 4th to us. But in those times, when LSU's ranked, LSU is clearly the better team than A&M, and it just has never worked out. We'll see what happens. Garrett's going to be there this weekend, as a matter of fact, at that game. So
I mentioned that.
Yeah. But sorry about that.
No, I said he's going to be covering the game in College Station.
But so it's we'll see. I think it'll be a really good game. I think they're both very equally matched. LSU is not they're not bursting with talent over A&M like they have been normally. And even in some of those years, recently SEC, A&M's gotten them because of whatever reasons. So we'll see what happens. I think it'll be a better game than most in the series have been.
Yeah, that game eventually changed how overtime is played because it what was it, 7 overtimes?
7 overtimes, yeah.
Crazy.
We were there that week after doing a high school game, and the grass in the, particularly between the 25 and the goal line.
Yeah, we did the game.
Was worn down a little bit.
Yep. That's when what was it? Our good friend James Fulbright was running back for Midway. Now, Baylor special teams. Brent Ingram, who's a part of he runs the media relations department for football, had this note out that, last week against Texas Tech, they had the muff fumble on the kick return. That's just one of those big breaks. Cameron had the long punt return. They have been steady. They were really good last year, and look at what they're doing this year. And I've always said this, if you're average, you can be good with good special teams. If you're average and you don't have good special teams, then you're going to win 4 or 5 games. Baylor, despite last year's record, very highly rated in special teams, but look where they are this year, yet again, very high.
Yeah, they've got a decent kicker, and they have a very fantastic punter. Kicker's okay. Better than most.
I'm talking about return game too now.
Yeah, return game. And return game's been good. I mean, it's been good. Look, Josh Cameron had the long return to the one the other night, and punt return, kick returns, through varying guys over the last couple of years.
They ran one back against Colorado.
Yeah, has been the bright spot. So they've got that part down. Okay.
If only they could have kicked the field goal near the end of the game to put Colorado down by 10.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree on the kicker being even okay. There have been a couple of different guys, and they got to do way more to even earn okay to me. If you want to say average across college football, that's okay, then, yeah, by that definition, they're okay.
Kind of where I feel
then that's the baseline. They meet the baseline criteria, but in terms of actually being impactful, I think they've come up short a couple of occasions. And I think Dave Aranda has said as much about the kicking game being a disappointment. So, hopefully those guys can get their heads straight, because outside of that, they've obviously had some big plays, and that included last week. They just kicked Tech's ass in every way, shape, and form, special teams-wise. Not running multiple kicks back or anything, but just the sharpness of the way that they played and executed versus the way Texas Tech did not. That was a glaring win in Baylor's favor in that game, even if it wasn't head-to-head, coverage unit versus your punt, it was, but just in general, the total package. Baylor won that game in part due to special teams. Tech lost that game in part due to special teams. And so, yeah, it can win you games and it can lose you games, and that's an area where they've been sharp, but they'd be a game or two better if they were more consistent on the field goal kicking. So I'll continue to say that. I don't care if that hurts feelings, because you know what hurts feelings? People losing their jobs because you missed a field goal. Sorry, but that's part of the way that, not that it's all on you necessarily, but you win that Colorado game. How different is the whole entire conversation? Now, that wasn't also just kicking. Make a stop on defense, do this or do that. But point being, they can be better there, and they need to be better there if they're going to win games down the stretch.
Guess who just joined our chat room? She's been here before. Andrea Cameron. Josh's proud mama. Woohoo! Special teams, baby. You and your son, and you know this, a walk-on to now who's the most reliable receiver that they have for Sawyer Robertson, and also has become really good when it comes to handling the punt returns and the big one that set them up at the doorstep against Texas Tech. So good to see you, Andrea. Appreciate your time and watching us on 365 Sports. Sam Houston State. Remember we had KC Keeler on a couple of years ago. They were starting the transition to try to get to FBS, and there's a waiting period. Tarleton State's had to deal with that a little bit with and Sam Houston State. And KC Keeler, they basically sat and redshirted a bunch of their best players, knowing they would probably lose games so that they would be available when they got to this level. And they won last night. It wasn't pretty. Beat Florida International at 10-7. KC Keeler is going to join us in the next segment. They're bowl-bound in their first year in FBS. And our good friend, Kavion Gaither, what a game he had. 7 tackles, picked off the first pass of the game. Young man from Connolly High School, 2-5, 10 minutes from here. Had a tackle behind the line of scrimmage, also had a quarterback pressure, and had a batted pass too. And it was great to see him play in a big moment for Sam Houston State.
Yeah, I was hoping to get the video for everybody to see. Couldn't find a good copy of it that we had the rights to use. But KG is a great kid, and he's a really good football player. And happy to see that moment for him early in the game. And we got KC Keeler here in a few minutes. I want to know the difference between stress of a 10-7 game and a 45-42 game. Would you rather be a 10-7 game, knowing that,
as a fan, give me 45-42 all day long. Yeah.
As a coach, would you rather it be a defensive
It all depends.
struggle?
Are you a defensive-minded coach or an offensive-minded coach?
But if you only really need to get one score as opposed to in a 45-42 game, you're going, how many touchdowns do we have to score to make sure we win this thing?
Yeah.
Do we have enough time to score that many touchdowns? As where you're in a one-score, low-score game, you're like, well, we have enough time to get a field goal. That's all we really need. So that I just wonder.
Yeah, I don't like football at 0-0 at halftime. I don't care what it's the freaking steel curtain versus the doomsday defense. It better be something pretty freaking special to be 0-0 at halftime and me enjoy that in any way. But I also don't need the 60 versus 58, final score either. But
if you're going to say 60-58, you have to say it right.
61-58.
Yeah, okay.
That's so. Win a game since then, and then we can still use that. For God's sakes. It was a great moment. I was there. It was very cool. It was 10 years ago. You haven't won a game against them but one time since.
Well, they were celebrating 10 years ago.
Yeah, but you're 1-9 since then, so it's not as cool as it could be.
Yeah.
Because TCU's had 3 of those in the span of that time period. So yeah, I'm over that at this point until you add something of substance, on top of that. But that's great for Sam Houston. To be bowl eligible now as an FBS team is part of the grand scheme, the grand plan of when you decided to make that transition. And so that's a big accomplishment. And you ruined the Vice uniforms night for FIU as well. You ruined Pitbull Stadium's atmosphere with that win. So mission accomplished, going on the road and making some history. So good for the Bearcats.
Good luck again as they keep on. They're not done. They're wanting to win more, and we'll have KC Keeler. In fact, we'll break for that. The Sam Houston State coach has a staff meeting at 4, so we'll get him on. There's some other sports news to get to, and we will. What? And coming up, KC Keeler, head coach at Sam Houston State. This is 365 Sports. PettyClinicLowT.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become a high-performance man you used to be, need to be, and want to be. And here's how. Contact him at PettyClinicLowT.com online. Tell him I sent you. I had somebody today walk up to me, and they said they just didn't feel right, that they were lethargic, that they've really struggled, and they feel like they're older than they really are. And I was like, have you had your – I actually said this. Have you had your testosterone checked? And they said no. They're in their mid-40s. It can happen then, too. 1 out of every 3 or 4 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone, and maybe that's you. Sex drive, your libido, all that's not the same. You're not sleeping as well. Your energy is just flat, like a tire. Dr. Petty will set you up to get your blood work. Take care of that for you. He'll set it up, and then you go at your convenience, give your blood, he gets the results, and if your testosterone level is too low, he can put you in a program to increase it, because that's what he does at PettyClinicLowT.com.
Get ready for Jeep Adventure Days at Allen Samuels in Waco. Right now, drive away in a brand new Jeep Grand Cherokee 4xe or a Wrangler 4xe with an unbeatable 0% financing for 72 months. Looking for a Wagoneer? We've got you covered with 3.9% for 72 months on all Wagoneers. First responders get an extra $500 off. Hurry in. Don't miss these incredible offers only at Allen Samuels in Waco. Your friend in the car business.
Come by. Let's be friends.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Ghost Hydration is a fully transparent, fully loaded, full-flavored hydration drink that we've all been waiting for. Ghost is caffeine-free with electrolytes, 0 sugar, and low sodium that'll hydrate your body before, during, and after your workout. Consumer loved with authentic flavors, so grab and enjoy a Sour Patch Kids Blue Raspberry and Red Berry, along with the Kiwi Strawberry, Orange Squeeze, or Lemon Lime. Ghost Hydration can truly be used anytime. Remember, it's formulated for sports, but made for life.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
When you work with a bank, you should expect the best of everything. That includes face-to-face personal service and the kind of community banking care that only comes from one neighbor to another. That's exactly what you'll get from the First National Bank of Central Texas, where you will know your banker works just as hard as you do. Once again, that's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Settle for nothing less than the first. Member FDIC.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Last night, Sam Houston State, as we mentioned, beat FIU. We mentioned the Kavion Gaither interception early. And the best part of it is the fact that Sam Houston State, the Bearcats in Huntsville, have clinched a bowl bid in their first year at FBS after the transition. KC Keeler joins us. Craig and Paul, David Smoak on 365 Sports. Congratulations, Coach.
Appreciate that. It was it's not easy to go on the road in any conference and win without your starting quarterback. But we played some stifling defense. We blocked the punt, and then that offense, came together that last drive, and I think we took off like 6 minutes and 40 seconds and 11 plays and drove the ball down and kicked the field goal that was end up being the winner. So nice way to move into bowl eligible.
Coach, 10-7, I know that like every close game, and every game and for that matter is tense, but every close game is tense. Would you rather play a 10-7 game from a coach's perspective or a 45-42 game?
One of my good friends, Don Sanders, who's the baseball field is named after here at Sam Houston, used to be one of the Astros minority owners. He said, I saw you a lot on TV last night, and you looked miserable. I was pretty miserable. But, think about that Texas State game. We're in a situation where, we have to, score 40 points in 3 quarters and come back and win. So, winning is winning. And I don't think you really, doing this long enough, you cherish every single one of them. But it was really a nice way, with our defense playing that well and getting that block punt that we've really been working on. It was really a nice way to get a win on the road, again, without your starting quarterback. And, again, we have one of the best, Hunter Watson, and he's had a phenomenal year so far. So, again, that was a big deal when it was without him.
Well, you mentioned Hunter Watson there. That's who I wanted to ask you about. How's he just feeling in general? I know it's got to be a tough time, not only dealing with an injury, but not being able to play the game that you love, and especially in the spot you guys are in. I know it was, rough as far as, looking at the scoreboard and the game itself for Jace Bauer at times, but just kind of your thoughts on that position now and, what you're expecting moving forward.
Yeah, Hunter traveled with us, and I think because of the short week, probably was the reason why we couldn't get him back out there. But feel very confident he'll be up for the La Tech game. And then we have an interesting schedule. We have 18 days off. Sometimes with these midweek games and when the buys are, you can get some interesting, scheduling. And we have actually 18 days off after we play La Tech. So I think it's a great opportunity for us to get everybody healthy moving into those last 3 games of the season. So, yeah, I mean, and Jace Bauer has played well for us. I thought he came in Central Florida game and played really well. Did some nice things, in some other games when we needed him. And it's just, one of those games where we were struggling blocking on the perimeter. So that took some of that game away. And their D-line's pretty good. What people forget is FIU also took Liberty to overtime at Liberty. And so this is not a team that – and that's where our conference is. It's who's winning those 50-50 games. If you win those 50-50 games, you could, you're 8-4 or 9-3, or you go into a bowl. If you're losing those 50-50 games, you're 4-8, 5-7. So it comes down in our league, especially with a lot of 50-50 games. And I think last year we had the most one-score games in all of college football in terms of the FBS level, and it shows week in and week out.
By the way, and I think that's at every – because 2022 TCU, who ended up playing for a national title and got smothered by Georgia, they won 5 last-minute games that year. So it does seem to happen, and that makes sense. So when you were on with us, and you've been on with us a handful of times, Casey, you mentioned that one year you were going to rest or sit a lot of your players as like a redshirt year to make sure that your roster was ready for when you hit this moment. And it appears as if you did the right thing. How difficult, though, was that kind of wait and being patient?
Oh, it was the most brutal year of my college coaching career, because, we have a whole mentality, we're all in all the time, and it's always about winning championships. And now we're playing a season when I'm looking behind me and I got all my best players standing in street clothes behind me. And it was twofold. The first thing is, in the world of the portal, you better learn to make adjustments on the fly. And all of a sudden, my players, because you got to remember when Appalachian State moved to FBS, those players couldn't go play, at another Division I football program. They could go down to Division II, but who wanted to go down to Division II? So they were stuck there, They had to live through the transition. Our kids were totally different. Because the transfer portal and the transition at the same time, our kids could go anywhere. So that's kind of the deal you had to make with them. You have to listen to them and say, okay, let me tell you how we can make this work. We're going to play that A&M game. We're going to let you play in the Battle of the Piney Woods. We're going to pick 2 other games early in the season. And then we're going to get you, healthy and in shape and go ready to play Conference USA. Wow, Coach, you can do that? We can do it. Do I want to do it? Yeah, probably not, but we can do that. So it was something out of necessity. But, boy, it was a brutally long season, knowing that we could have won a lot more games. But, again, what are those games counting for? And the other thing is, I think people forget, we had to play on a 9-game schedule. We had some schools drop us because we were leaving the conference. And so we were stuck in a 9-game schedule. And, boy, you talk about a long season, boy, that was a long, long season.
That was something that I'm not saying other coaches would not have done the same thing, but there are also the possibilities of, man, this is on my win-loss record. It's for the best of the program. It's kind of like when you come in and take over a new program. There's some years you're going to have to struggle, but that was a very unselfish thing for you to do.
Well, yeah, I think it's a matter of self-preservation, because the rules are changing constantly. I mean, literally, are we just doing 1 portal this year? We're doing 2 portals this year? Oh, we're going back to 2 portals. I thought we were going to go 1 portal. I mean, like literally week by week, you're trying to decipher what the new information is out there. And all that stuff affects how you evaluate your players, what your calendar looks like. I mean, it really does. And that's why, it's so important in this day and age, you have a general manager. I have a guy, Clayton Barnes, 29 years old. I mean, he is as sharp as they come, and he manages all those things. Hey, Coach, didn't know if you saw the new legislation. This is what it looks like, and this is what I think we should do. I mean, so all that stuff's taking place, and there's a lot of moving parts in college football now more than ever before.
How much did that time with the guys that you had to talk into it, obviously, in the new world, make them stronger mentally as football players, knowing that they were going to have to sit and watch and not be in it?
Well, I think one of the things, too, it solidified our relationship. It was one of those like, oh, Coach is going to do that for me. And I appreciate him looking out for me. And so, we're very big into, love and trust. And you can't love somebody unless you know somebody. You can't trust somebody unless you know somebody. That's kind of our foundation. So we spend a lot of time getting a chance to know each other. And I think if you look at our success, a lot of our success is because we have a roster that's old. We have a roster that has a lot of juniors and seniors on it, that guys who played a lot of football for us. We have some guys who are transfers, that we all do, but our roster is not made of 100% mercenaries. If your roster is made up of 100% mercenaries, wow, I think that's tough. And I think we've won some games this year because of our culture. And a great example was that Texas State game. You know, we're down 22-0. And this team marches back and has a 6-minute and 45-second drive at the end of the game to put the game away and kick the field goal. I mean, that's a culture win. No one panicked. Everyone knew the philosophies. We're going to play to the end, and then we'll check out what the score is. No one's going to point a finger. So I think in today's day and age, you're seeing that it's important to have talent, but it's more important to have culture.
We mentioned Kavian Gaither picked off the first pass they threw, I think, on the second play of the game. I traded a note with Ben Ricard last night about it. We remember when we asked you about him. He was going to play. We watched him. We covered his games his senior year in high school, and what guys like that have meant to you.
Oh, my God. And Kavian, and I told him, and I saw his family after the game, and I said, his legacy, he's the captain of the team that took us to our first bowl. That's his legacy.
There you go.
And what a special, special player. What an amazing human being. And, you know, here's a kid that, you know, was definitely getting some – he was the WAC player of the year, you know, when we redshirted Trevor Williams. And, you know, there's no question that there's people in his ear trying to say, hey, listen, if you put yourself in the portal, now I'm graduating as a Bearcat. Well, I mean, you know, so we have some guys who are really grounded that way, who know that, like, for a couple extra dollars, it's really not worth it for me to go down that road. I mean, I want to have a great college experience. I want to, you know, be someone who's going to be a fabric of the team kind of guy. And we're blessed to have so many guys like that. And Kavian is absolutely the leader of that group.
Casey, when all this started with NIL and then the portal, and we know that the schools, the bigger boys at the top are going to raid other programs, maybe even yours or others. At the same time, you're getting some players maybe that leave schools that are what they call more the Power 5 or 4, which has benefited. What programs, in your opinion, have benefited the most from the current rules in college football?
Well, you know, if you look at what happened to Michigan State when the transfer portal first opened and first happened, I mean, all of a sudden they had this phenomenal year. Well, then the next year they're just a totally different team, because if you're living in the transfer portal, every year is going to be like, you know, did we make the right evaluation this year? You know, you're not growing your own. And I believe strongly that locker room, I mean, you win a lot of games because how strong your locker room is. And so I think, you know, how we've done it is we're going to try really working with any NLI money we have to maintain our roster. We're going to reinvest back in our players. If there's, you know, we have very low. We probably have the lowest NIL in the country. And we're working on that, but that's just the reality. You know, we probably have, you know, we went into FBS as a mid-level FCS budget for football. So think about that. We're not even in the top of the you know, heap in FCS financially, and we're going into FBS because all the success we had. We also saw there was a change taking place in college football, and we thought we needed to be closer to the sun than down in the middle there, you know. And so, yeah, there's a lot of moving parts with this whole thing, but we really have a strong belief that, you know, you need players, but you also need culture. So I think we've selfishly managed it pretty well. And also, you got to remember, like, I don't have the money that we can go buy players. So I don't know how I would react in those situations. But I still believe that you just can't have mercenaries in your locker room, because I think there's no one to lead the culture. And so I think it's a fine line of bringing in talent, but also making sure you're taking care of your locker room.
How much better do you have to get at like, not the recruiting part of it of please come here, but identifying those guys with that layer on top of it of there's money involved now?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. Our first recruiting weekend last year, where we could bring transfers on, we had 3 transfers come in, and they all tried to negotiate NLI deals with me. I'm like, guys, you're at the wrong place. Like, we're going to take care of our own first. And if there's any opportunities for you, we'll let you know that. But besides maybe some moving, you know, money that our our alums might do, because we had a bunch of alums who, when they transferred, they remember not being able to get that first summer check until the middle of June, but they had to move in the middle of May, all that kind of stuff. So we've been able to do that. Some alums have worked out some things in our collective where, like, some of those transfers coming in get like a little, move in, sort of deal. But it's interesting how you have to, manage all those things, because there's no secrets in our world. There's just no secrets. And if someone's getting something, everyone else knows about it too.
No
so
question.
You got to make sure that you're shooting straight with your kids. If you don't think it's going to get back to the rest of the team, you're playing pretend.
Congratulations, Coach. It's been fun to we've had you on again many times, and including the year when you had to kind of just take a beating in a way, and what you did with the program and what it's leading to. The first year you're already bowl eligible, and I know you have bigger fish to fry. We enjoy watching what you're doing. Tell Kavion we said hello, and congratulations on getting to a bowl game. I know you got a staff meeting to get to, so we better let you go.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We wrote history last night, but now there's more history to write, and that's kind of the theme with our players in our team meeting coming up here in about an hour.
Yep, there you go, and that's why it's KC Keeler, head coach at Sam Houston State, won their 6 games, 6-2, 4 games still to play in their first year after a 2-year transition, and he has his record, his resume, what they did at the end of the time when they were in the FCS, won the national title during the COVID year, and many 12-2s and 12-2s and 12-2s and a great run. And the first year with the FBS, they're in a bowl game, so good luck to them. When we come back, we will look at the Big 12 Bowlsby pod. That's the 4 teams. Those are the 4 teams that came in after the news about Texas and Oklahoma would be leaving for the SEC. Zach Gelb from what was CBS, it still is, but Infinity Sports Network, he'll join us. Mike Craven, Texas football, Dave Campbell's Texas football, and more. And this is 365 Sports. The Baylor Club, homecoming week at McLean Stadium and on the Baylor campus. The Baylor Club, where you can present, find, and be a part of emerging leaders, building camaraderie, and strengthening the community. And also, if you are involved in, by the way, finding new customers or clients or sponsors, there's room there, particular spots, little pockets where you can sit down and present something to a business, or they can to you. The Baylor Club, get ready for an unforgettable homecoming weekend. Bucket list, Friday night live. Kick off the weekend with great food, live music from Aaron Kanzamani, and also join the Baylor Club, special appearances from the Baylor Spirit Squad, Bruiser, Marigold, before heading to the pep rally and also the bonfire. That's on Friday starting at 8:30. And then on game day, after the parade, swing by the Baylor Club, the tailgate at Knox Hall, enjoy a delicious buffet, full bar, fun with local vendors like Spicy Trucker Company and DII, which is do-it-yourself hat making. Saturday, 11:30 to 2:30, the kickoff against Oklahoma State at 2:30. And then the Bear Brunch on Sunday, wrap up the weekend and homecoming style. It's the Baylor Club. General Manager Mike Mosel. They can host your event. They can give you an incredible a variety of tremendous cuisine from their chefs and more at the Baylor Club. Memberships available.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year, it's football season. Bird Colgan Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 selling truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, 47 years in a row. Come see the largest showroom in Texas and experience better at Bird Colgan Ford.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
It's football and tailgate season. If you want product for the grill or smoker, charcoal, seasonings, marinades, sauces, Waco Custom Marketplace is your home to help prep, cook, and enjoy your food. Tailgate must-like brisket, tri-tip, fresh-made burgers, sausage, chicken wings, and if you want steaks, call in your order and pick them up. Bacon wrap fillets or any kind of ribeyes. USDA Select, Choice, and Prime that melt in your mouth. House-made sausage and jerky. Also, Waco Custom Marketplace, a one-stop shop for tailgating, barbecue cook-offs, and family get-togethers, fundraisers with fair prices to you, the customer. A bakery with fresh baked bread and kolaches. There's cold beer, wine, and soft drinks. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. A cut above the rest. Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend's Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Well, this is a pretty successful pod. Each week we kind of look at that. The 16 teams in the Big 12, we break them down into 4 pods. We did the Big 12 South Monday, and we did the North yesterday. And now it's the Bowlesby pod. He was the commissioner when they had to react to the losses of Texas and Oklahoma at some point, in fact, starting this year. And BYU, they're winning. Cincinnati, playing well. UCF, not so much. And Houston had a really nice win against TCU and fell back after losing to KU. So let's start with the team highest ranked and also at the top along with the others in the Big 12, BYU.
BYU is fantastic. I mean, as far as, just getting it done, it's not going to, I think, they're not going to win a lot on style points, but they play pretty clean. And even though they didn't play their best game at home, Oklahoma State probably played their best game of the entire season. They met Oklahoma's best game of the season, took it down to the wire, and won it when it mattered. And I can't say enough about Jake Retzlaff and what he's become and how he's developed. I think the most improved player of the year has to be Jake Retzlaff for sure. He's been absolutely, just a godsend to them. So, I can't, I can't knock them yet. I mean, nobody's figured out to crack the code on how to beat BYU. They're a special team. They've got a little bit of destiny on their side, too, it seems.
Retzlaff is a really great player. Even though he had a couple of picks the other night, he was able to overcome that with some of the plays down the stretch. And I wasn't a big believer in him initially, especially when you have a competition that goes all the way to the start of the season with Gary Bohannon, who we love, but I'm sorry, we don't respect him as like some top-tier push your starting quarterback to the limit guy at this point in his career, right? Like, I don't think any of us are under that idea. Yeah. So to see him take that competition, now, of course, that could have been Kalani Sitake rewarding him for hard work, or the competition maybe just played out that way in practice. But, I mean, Gary Bohannon should find if he's got another year of eligibility, because if he put Jake Retzlaff to the limit and Retzlaff's playing like this, then Gary Bohannon must have a little something too, just because that's how impressive Retzlaff has been, particularly in that last game, overcoming those couple of interceptions early on and the hole that BYU dug for itself. So he made some crucial plays down the stretch. Some of his mobility definitely coming into play and something that teams have to account for. The little spin move that he used to get off and make that key throw at the end of the game was a fun highlight to watch a few times after last weekend. And, yeah, he's been really impressive, and I think he's the difference maker for them. Now you got L.J. Martin coming back these last couple of games, and whereas you had really no run game to speak of for the most part. Now you've got a stout running game that's starting to develop. You already had, Ropati was doing his thing, but you add Martin to that, and Martin, 122 scores last week. He had a big week the week before that as well, and then we know what they've got offensively as far as, targets like Roberts and Lassiter. So they're pretty loaded on offense when Retzloff's playing well and not turning the ball over. And I think you saw both sides of that last week. Defensively, they're obviously very stout, but Oklahoma State carved them up. Granted, you gave them some short fields and whatnot, but Oklahoma State had a lot of success, and I'm still very interested in what that game would have looked like if Garrett Rangel doesn't get hurt. But that is sometimes the luck of the draw when you're a team like BYU, who's perhaps a team of destiny type, that certain things have to fall a certain way to get you to where you need to be. And so far, those things have fallen even when it's looked really dicey. They've found a way to catch a break or to make their own break and find a way to win at the end. And obviously, they made the play with the touchdown there at the end to go win that game. And so, I give them a lot of credit. That was in Provo, so that was another shocking thing about that game being as close as it was the fact that Oklahoma State marched into that atmosphere and was able to nearly pull that upset. But all that matters is that you won. And so they're 7-0. They're on top of the conference. It's them and Iowa State and everybody else chasing. And I think you feel really great so long as you stay healthy about where this can continue to take you. So, they're sitting in a really good spot right now. And they have UCF coming up, which if you look at the matchup predictor on ESPN, they have UCF as slight favorites, like a 50-something% to 40-something%. I know that this is a game that some BYU fans have kind of dreading because this is the inevitable letdown. But I don't know. I'm very interested, though, because I do see where they're coming from, and I know that BYU has played with a little bit of fire. So let's see if they can take it on the road and get the job done like they did when they had to go to SMU and when they had to go to Baylor, and they took care of the job there. If they can go do that in Orlando, that would be a big step forward for them.
I looked up BYU. We've seen Greg Wrubell. We've used his tweets a couple of times. They're +6 in the turnover margin, by the way. James Madison leads the country in double digits. But that's really nice, and they have really done a great job. I was actually looking. BYU is 64th in the country in rushing defense. We know what UCF can do. BYU, though, total defense is 30th. They're having a really solid year with what they do on defense. So there is BYU, the first team we look at here on the Bowls in the Bowlesby Pod. Cincinnati, they're playing at Colorado. Scott Satterfield and the Bearcats have been a fun story. They've just methodically kind of hung around. Here they are at Colorado. Obviously, we know what Dion and company can do, but this is about the Bearcats and what they're doing right now.
Yeah, I really pleasantly surprised by Brennan Sorsby and the way he's played this year. They've got great running backs, and as long as they can keep those guys healthy, they're in it. This week is this the Arizona State week, or are they off this week? No, it's Colorado. Sorry, this is Colorado. I'm sorry, that was last week.
We're talking about Cincinnati.
Yeah. No, I'm trying to figure their schedule.
Oh, they're playing Colorado.
Colorado. Yeah. So Colorado. This is going to be a tough one at 9:15 against Colorado, but I do think that they'll whip it around the yard pretty good. This should be a pretty high-scoring game. This might be where the bubble recently gets popped because Colorado's been playing so well, and they're in Boulder. But Scott Satterfield's got it going well. I mean, they're playing well on both sides of the ball, so I expect them to give the Buffaloes.
They've lost twice by 4 points total.
Yeah, I expect them to give them some hell. I mean, I think Colorado wins it, but Cincinnati's going to avail it well, I think.
Cincinnati did not play all that well last week, but they got the win. That's all that really matters. Brennan Sorsby didn't do much of anything substantial. He was able to get a couple scores on the ground, but passing game-wise, they weren't that great. They obviously have, in addition to him being able to run it around a little bit, a couple of really good backs in Kiner and Pryor. So they, had a nice performance from Kiner in particular last week. And just based off that Texas Tech game, I know it's like a month ago at this point, but when both those guys got banged up, I definitely think that played into that outcome. And so to have them both healthy, I think is a really strong step forward, and that you've navigated that all the way to 5-2. amongst changes on defense and just trying to get used to Tyson Veit and what he's trying to do. They've had some obstacles that they've successfully navigated to this point. But if Arizona State can make a field goal last week in the fourth quarter, then that game maybe is a little bit different. And that's even with Jeff Sims starting for them, who did a whole lot of not really anything for Arizona State. So I don't really look at that last week as some exceptional performance to play off of, but it was a win, and that's really all that matters. So they've got to play better this week, that's for damn sure, or else they will get blown out against Colorado, in my opinion at least. But I'm interested to see how Veit defends Shedeur, and that Cincinnati defense continues to come along. And then offensively, they've got to be better than they were last week. But there's the potential there for a lot of fireworks because they do have some playmakers. And I think that maybe for some the record's a bit misleading, that you're not really willing to go all in on them being, 6-2 potentially after this weekend, or I guess 5-3 you would be expecting perhaps. But there's the opportunity to really turn this thing on its head and go 6-2 with a big upset win. But yeah, I'm banking on Colorado winning this game based on what we've seen to this point. I do like what Cincinnati's done though in terms of improving this season. And I like some of their players. They're fun to watch. But, yeah, I don't see them rolling into Colorado and getting the win.
They would have to have their run game. It's one of those games where they need to shrink the clock. That doesn't mean that Sorsby can't throw it around, but that's a game where Cincinnati will need to, if they can, try to run the ball and maybe shrink the game a little bit. But it's a late-night game. That's already tough.
It's also a two-time zone game, is it not?
No, that's what I'm saying. Oh, no, I didn't say two-time zone, but a late-night game. Yeah, it's like 9:15. Is Boulder –
It's 2 time zones.
Yeah, they're still there, aren't they, until in a couple of weeks. So they're Cincinnati and part of the Bowlesby pot. The other one, UCF. My God, they were so close. So close.
Gus Malzahn's signature at UCF lately has been blowing games late, losing games that they had control of. And he's got to figure out a way to stop that and stop that in a hurry. This week, though they're playing BYU, a team that will absolutely take advantage of you, giving them opportunities. Yeah, it's at their place, and it's that's a tough place to play. But it's not any kind, like, they haven't done anything that's that intimidating this year. And even changing the quarterback looked like it worked out well for them last week against Iowa State, but they blew that game. Then they got to play BYU right back to back. Not a winning combo for me. I think UCF needs to start figuring out, how to be better on defense and how to diversify their offense a little bit more to make sure that they can hold leads.
Despite 4 consecutive losses, they have BYU at home, which is, again, it's in their backyard. Then they have Arizona, Arizona State, West Virginia, Utah. And, again, like with a lot of other teams' schedules, sometimes you can open up a little bit. No games a gimme in this conference, not even Houston, not even Baylor. We saw that last weekend. But they do have, at least the schedule opens up if, though, they can figure out a way to beat BYU this weekend in Orlando. Craig?
Yeah, I mean, that running game was pretty damn special last week. I mean, 350-something yards on an Iowa State defense in Ames, Iowa. That was pretty electric, and it should have been enough to win that game, but they just couldn't get a stop at the end, allowed Iowa State to go down and score twice late, and that last drive, obviously the killer that cost you the game. So just really unfortunate that they couldn't close that one out because it was there for the taking. And I know a lot of people were rooting for that, especially out in Provo, Utah, that Iowa State would take its first loss. But, Ja'Curry Brown, that change that they've made, hard to tell how much of an impact that's really going to have in the big picture offensively as far as the passing game goes. He had a couple of picks, but on the ground, I mean, shoot, he was amazing along with R.J. Harvey. That was the near entirety of that run game, that 350-something yards. He had like half of it and a couple scores. So that's a really interesting dynamic that BYU is going to have to contend with this week. The fact it's in Orlando, I think, plays into UCF's favor as well, being at the bounce house, welcoming an undefeated team, welcoming in the team that is vying for a playoff spot potentially and certainly a spot in Arlington. You got a shot to knock them off, and you beat a team like that, then that maybe erases some of the bad blood from the past month where you've lost all 4 of the games we've seen you in action. So they desperately need a win. There's some metrics that favor them in this game, being at home favors them somewhat in this game. And, if you can compile 350 yards on the ground, I think that might be good enough to beat BYU. But you're going to have to do better in the passing game. You're going to have something there, and you're going to have to be able to get critical stops at the end of a game to win tight, close games against good teams. And that was not what they were able to do last week, and it cost them to the tune of a 3-point loss that was just absolutely gut-wrenching to have to watch if you were a UCF fan, and one that should have been a win.
Yep.
So now you found yourself going from 3-0 to 3-4, and you need 3 more wins in 5 weeks to even make a bowl game. So you don't win this weekend at home. That's 1 less home game, and you got 2 left, and you got 2 road trips, and the schedule, you can look at it favorably, but can you if you're UCF? I mean, you've lost 4 straight games. Who are you to be looking down at Arizona State or Arizona and saying, well, we'll win those games? Like, you don't want to play that, well, we just got to win 4 out of 5. No, wait, we got to win 4 out of 4. And so this is in many ways a must. It's not a definition of a must win, but it's very close to becoming they have to win every game remaining if they don't win a game like this weekend.
Yeah, they do. And the part of the conference that they're in, that's kind of where everybody is now. Baylor, UCF, TCU, Oklahoma State, West Virginia, they're all living like right there in that area of, hey, every time you lose, you don't get to go somewhere when the season's over. Like, that's closer to that. And for certain programs, I think, namely right now, West Virginia and Baylor, you keep losing, then your coaching staff's going to change.
No, that's another part of putting this on the table as far as that discussion. Nobody yet in the Big 12 has been eliminated from making it to a bowl game, and they, of course, have a lot of tie-ins. 5 losses for Houston, 5 losses for KU, and a bunch of teams with 3 losses and or 4. So there we are with UCF as they host BYU coming up this weekend, and that leads us to Houston. They had the big win against TCU. They did not. They were beaten up pretty good by KU, and, of course, their backs are against the wall with Lance Leipold, but this is Houston, Willie Fritz, and they're hosting Utah. I have no idea what you get from Utah. They used to be the team. Maybe they still are, but they've just so much drama with the quarterback position and who's going to play or not. They used to be, no matter who was there, next man up, we just grind and they win. They have been worn down this year, and now they travel to Houston, 6 o'clock on ESPN+.
Houston every week is going to be, let's see how good they're going to be in the future. Like, what do they have? What can they build around? And they're going to have weeks like that against TCU a couple weeks ago where, holy cow, there might be something here, but they're also not deep enough and talented enough to where they're going to string that together. That's not where they are, but I think that every week you need to watch Houston and Willie Fritz and see, okay, what is he going to build around for the future? What are the problems going to be for teams? Who can they jump up and bite somebody else like they jump up and bit TCU? That's how you watch Houston for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean, this game is interesting for ugly reasons because both teams are just really limping into this one. So I think it's really hard to know what to expect from Utah other than just a really valiant effort. And it's tough to know what to expect from Houston other than, it'll be a valiant effort. But Donovan Smith got the time last week in that loss to Kansas, and that was a game that just was out of their control before it even really got off the ground, and they never really recovered. They were just outplayed, outmatched, outclassed, and that was a tough pill to swallow after having that big win over TCU a couple weeks earlier. So to come off the bye week and get destroyed, granted, you were on the road. Granted, Kansas is probably as hungry as any team in the conference to get a win, but 42-14 is just a really tough pill to swallow. So some of that definitely is credit to KU. Some of that's just where Houston finds itself right now. Great opportunity. I mean, I don't think there's any expectations for you to win this game. So, the rest of the way, I think it's just like what Paul said of just how can you build this thing up, try to have some good moments here and there, maybe even grab a win or two and just keep getting better for not just the now, but for the long term of the program and the vision of Willie Fritz. And that's got to be tough for the older players. I hate it for older players who get stuck in coaching transitions or rebuilds, and you are unfortunately having to eat the pin or eat the losses while they're setting up the freshmen and the sophomores to be great in a couple of years. But when you come back home, you know that you planted some of those seeds, as rough as it was, and you are part of the reason why it's blossoming. And that's kind of the faith that you have to have if you're older Houston players right now, is that you're laying the foundation for some of those guys on your roster to bloom. And they kind of did that with a win like TCU. But obviously a step back, and we'll see this weekend because, again, this is just a weird matchup given where these two teams find themselves. But I would definitely still take Utah. I mean, no money, $100, gun to my head, just in general, I'm taking Utah more than I'm taking Houston. I don't care where the game is or what the quarterback situation is.
Well, that they're young and they're trying to figure it out, and Willie Fritz is kind of tinkering a little bit, and then he'll try to do what he could do in the offseason, but there's still a month left in the year. When we come back, Mike Craven, great writer for Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine, he will join us, his thoughts about the Big 12 and much more. And so many stories in college football. Mike Craven, he's next. This is 365 Sports. TexasBeefHouse.com. Time for yet another auction. Coming up, in fact, right now, the first of the 2 days, it's wide open until 6 o'clock tomorrow night. TexasBeefHouse.com. You can go to TexasBeefHouse.com or go to BidOnBeef.com, and you can see exactly what is available, because what they have, delicious. Wagyu steaks, Wagyu beef, and TexasBeefHouse.com, just outside of Tyler, Texas, with their Angus cattle, the Big Ranch, the Duvall family, on everything of what they have done, which is phenomenal. This bidding will go all the way through today. Go to TexasBeefHouse.com. I've done this before. Free shipping, by the way, in the state of Texas, and on orders over $300 of flat rate, $25 shipping on orders outside of the state of Texas of under $300. You want to get involved? You can do it. TexasBeefHouse.com. Wagyu and Angus steaks, brisket, tri-tip, burgers, so much to get to, and it's worth it. It is absolutely delicious. First lot. There's a bunch of lots. They have a lot. It's like Wagyu fillets, Wagyu ribeyes. I mean, just gorgeous marbling Wagyu ribeyes, Wagyu prime time, which includes ribeyes and also fillets. So much. New York strips, Wagyu and Angus beef. TexasBeefHouse.com.
Announcing Genco's Car Hugger Special. Right now, refinance your auto loan at Genco and get 3 months of no car payments. Plus, your loan will be automatically entered for a chance to win your next 3 car payments on us. Enjoy 5.19% for 48 months and then skip your payments until 2025. Subject to credit approval and membership eligibility. For more information, go to GencoFCU.org. Member NCUA.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student-athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student-athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student-athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Incredibly talented writer, Mike Craven, Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine. You can go on Twitter at Craven Mike, on Twitter, and watch what he does covering college football, but a lot more. Mike Craven joins us. Hey, Mike, how you doing?
Doing good, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. There's a lot of things to get to. The article you have on Texas and A&M, Sam Houston State's KC Keeler was on with us earlier. But I want to start with, did you really one night just go back and watch Baylor TCU 61-58?
I did. I'm working on a story, talking to some guys on the TCU side, the Baylor side that were in that game. Want to write a story for kind of leading into next week. So I needed to jog my memory, walk down memory lane, watch that, kind of find some of the bigger plays that happened. It was a lot of fun. I miss that kind of football.
Mike, what, now looking back a decade later on it, stuck out to you about the ridiculousness that was that game?
All verts. Like, it was like, I'm going to ask this to Bryce Petty and to Boykin when I talk to him later this week. Like, what was the percentage of vertical routes that were called? And so it was in the heyday of the air raid and just the going down deep vertical, right? Riles was doing that as well. So it was either a run, a very short swing pass, or a 50-yard bomb. There wasn't much in between that, and that kind of is different than what we've seen it evolve to now.
Mike, man, 10 years ago, huh? That's a long time ago, man. That's crazy. It's been that long. But we're getting A&M Texas back. We don't have quite the sizzle of TCU and Baylor, but what kind of hopes do you have for these two teams? That might be an interesting game here in a couple weeks if both can handle their business this weekend. They've obviously taken their lumps, but this was one of those protected Big 12 rivalries. What kind of hopes do you have that they can kind of rekindle some of that here in the next few years, sooner rather than later?
Yeah, I do think that November 30th game in College Station is going to be, one of the bigger games in recent memory in Texas college football. Historically, both of those teams aren't very good at the same time. I was kind of running through some numbers. 1975 is the only time Texas and Texas A&M each had a 10-win season in the same year. They have more years where they've won 6 or less when the other team has won 10 than having 8 or more wins in those years. So I think it's like when one of those teams in 36 times of winning 10 games, the other team averages like 6 wins a year. And so having them be 6-1 at the same time, both high up there in the SEC rankings, and also, obviously they hadn't played in a dozen years. So it's going to be a big one.
The ticket sales for that game, you could imagine, skyrocketing, the emotions, the first time in 12 years. And as you said, they're both pretty good. And this, we know Texas coming off what they did a year ago. They seem to be that they're going to be in there for the long haul. Why do you feel like this A&M team is not, they will hit the skids near the end of the year?
I think it's their ability to run the football and to play defense. You've watched a lot of football, right? Like, those things tend to travel and they tend to be more consistent week in and week out. They're not winning 52-49 and need to get some turnovers and things go their way. They are already the second best team in the SEC in giving up tackles for loss and sacks, and the third best team in the SEC in getting tackles for loss and sacks. And so they're creating negative plays on defense, and the offensive line isn't allowing very many on offense. Connor Wegman's probably the X factor for the Aggies. If he is the quarterback we saw against Missouri, A&M can play with most of the teams in the SEC. If he's the quarterback we saw against Notre Dame and somewhat against Mississippi State, I think that they're going to lose some of these bigger games against LSU, against Texas down the stretch.
they're much more efficient than they have been, and they're much more creative on either side of the ball than they have been in this coaching staff. They still have a lot of the talent that Jimbo brought in that was really good talent. They've lost some of that 5-star top-end stuff. Do you think that's what's going to maybe prevent them from breaking through against an LSU or Texas?
Yeah, it definitely could be. I think the guy that we're all kind of concerned about, or at least, looking to see if he reaches that potential, is Connor Wigman, and he is a former 5-star guy, right? Like, he was in that same class of Quinn Ewers, Cade Klubnik. Ewers ended up reclassifying, but there was real talk of who was the best player of those three, and now those three guys are leading top 20 teams in this country. I do think that they have enough talent, defensive line up front. Like, Nick Skirton's considered a 3-star guy, but he led the Big Ten in sacks last year at Purdue. If he was re-ranked, he'd be a 5-star future first-round draft pick. So I think A&M has enough to hang in there. I'm just worried about the quarterback. Nussmeier at LSU is pretty established. He's had some big games. Quinn Ewers, despite the last effort, has had some big games. He's won a Big 12 championship. Connor Wigman's the one that we're still wondering about. And if he can live up to that hype, and we've seen him do it occasionally, if he can be that guy, A&M's going to have a really good chance to make the college football playoff. If he's not that guy, I think they end up, 8-4 with a really good season, but not one that can get you beyond that.
Mike, last week, Baylor went out to Lubbock and put a beat down, for lack of a better term, on Texas Tech. It was surprising for those of us that cover the team. Not that they won, because the Big 12 is what it is. Anybody can beat anybody, but the fashion was a little shocking. What was your take on both those teams coming out of that game? Tech obviously gets TCU in Fort Worth. Baylor gets a wounded Oklahoma State team. Maybe can string some things together, but how surprised were you, and where do you kind of have both those teams trajectory-wise coming out of that one?
Yeah, I was very surprised, and Baylor's played some really good football, just for 2 or 3 quarters of a game. We just haven't seen them put together a 4-quarter effort. They either start really fast like they did against Colorado and fall away, or we saw them start slow against BYU and make a comeback attempt. That Tech game was what Baylor can be at its best. Jake Spavital, Sawyer Robertson have been a really good partnership that makes a lot of sense for what Spav likes to run. Bryson Washington's emerged as a running back. They made some plays defensively. And so I think for Baylor, you look at it, you go back to film, and you get together on Sunday and you go, guys, there's no reason we can't play like this every single week. And you look at their schedule, they could go on a real run and end up 7-5, right? And see what happens in 2025 and beyond. If you're Tech, I think it's a real concern. Like, they've lost 4 times now at home since Joey McGuire's got there, which is a good record. But 2 of them have been blown out, by Baylor. Maybe that's just a scheme thing. Maybe they just don't match up against Texas Tech. But that was a bad one to win it or to lose at home. Now you go on the road where they have struggled under McGuire. All of a sudden, you could be on a 2-game losing streak, 5-4, and the fan base look around and going, I thought we were going to compete for a Big 12 championship. Now it's just what bowl we're going to. And so a big game this week for the Red Raiders.
Mike, SMU's been fun to watch, and they're good, too, but they lost one of the weapons. They have a few, but R.J. Maryland, we've had him on this show. He was, I think, after he had won a couple of national awards. Your thoughts about the loss of what he means to that offense?
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge loss. They probably lose to Nevada in week 1, if not for R.J. Maryland. He is absolutely their best weapon. He leads the team in receiving yards, receiving catches, touchdowns. Like, he is their number 1 target, even though he plays wide receiver. I do think with Kevin Jennings and what he's brought to that offense, they've averaged, I think, 45.8 points a game in the 4 games since he's been inserted as the starter. It's really unlocked them. He's great against the blitz. He's like 80% completion against the blitz. And so I do think with some of their other weapons, and they're going to have to step up. Guys like Jake Bailey, Keyshawn Smith, like Brashard Smith, like those guys are going to have to step up and play better football with larger roles. I think they can do it. I think they can still get to 9 or 10 wins, reach the ACC championship if they can get past Pitt in a couple of weeks. But it absolutely lowers their ceiling because R.J. Maryland was probably their best offensive weapon outside of their quarterback.
TCU on the other side of that Tech game has been quite the enigma this year, Mike. They have, again, this is a big offense they're going to play against. Their defense hasn't been good except for last week when they played Utah, who was reeling after, finally figuring out that Cam Rising's done. What do you make of the rest of their season and how they need to claw out of a hole?
It's been tough offensively for them because the first 5-6 weeks of the season, Josh Hoover was lighting it up. He wasn't turning the football over. He was carrying that offense, but you can tell defenses are loading up against the pass, kind of populating, dropping 7 or 8, and just daring TCU to run the football, and they just can't. Savion Williams was their leading rusher last week. That was basically him as a wide receiver playing Wildcat and just getting the ball snapped to him and running it, right? Like, they didn't have a real run game. It cost them against UCF. That's why they gave up that second half lead. It cost them against SMU. They just kept throwing it. It was like a Venus flytrap, right? They just kept throwing it to SMU. SMU kept returning it for touchdowns or for good field position. And so they need to find balance. And I just don't know how you do that in the middle of the season. Your offensive line is what it is. Your running backs are what they are. I just don't know if they're going to scheme their way to some kind of magical run game. And that's going to make it hard against good teams. They got lucky last week that Utah probably could have taken 10 quarters and not gotten to 20 points. And so, Tech can score. They can't stop many guys, but they can score. And so if TCU is going to be one-dimensional, I think that leads this to be, a favorite for Tech. But you look down and Vegas has TCU as almost a touchdown favorite. They're much smarter than I am.
Mike, we were doing a little pod, Big 12 action here, rolling through the teams and talking about Houston, who they now get Utah. They've had injuries. It's obviously a transition. Just how do you kind of view Houston? Is it all about just building just bricks one at a time? That TCU win was obviously really important, but just stacking those kinds of things and knowing, as unfortunate as this for older players, like, hey, you're kind of just laying the foundation. The winning's going to come thanks to what you guys do right now. How do you view the Cougs and what they've done up to this point?
Yeah, I think if you're Houston, you're just trying to steal some wins to kind of show proof of concept. You got that against TCU. You hope you get 1 or 2 more on the way out here. But Willie Fritz is Novocaine. Like, he's not trying to get in there and just work right away and get the quick fix. Like, give him some time. It always works. It was a slow burn at Tulane. And then they became, arguably the best G5 program in the nation by the time he left there. He did this at Sam Houston. He did it at Blinn. Georgia Southern was probably the only, or Georgia State was probably the only place he kind of hit the ground running and won right away. And so I think, even if you ask Houston, if you truth serum, the AD and the fan base, everybody knew it was going to be a slow process. Like, they're not as talented as they were the year before. It's about figuring out who on the roster you can build around and what you need, get some recruiting momentum. They're recruiting really well. So I kind of judge it by what they do off the field. Is the recruiting looking good? Is the admin happy? Like, what's the staff feeling like behind the scenes? And it does feel like they know this is going to be a 2-3 year process and they've signed up for it.
All right, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were going to write a book, right?
I did write a book.
And we don't have a copy. We need a copy so we can put it like up here on the desk the next time we're on the show if we get a copy from you.
Somebody send me an address and I'll shoot you one. I got one right here. Hold on.
All right. Yep, that's on your Twitter feed as well for those who want to go to the Twitter feed for Craven Mike. That's the book. It's a great book. It's a historical book. And we'll put it on the front like here in the mid-table. Now that it's over, can you try to explain, is it like trying to cram for 3 finals in college, or what was that experience once you actually sent it to the publishers and it was done?
Yeah, it's like digging a ditch, because I'm an article writer, and so by the time I write an article, I send it off to the editor. By the time I can hate it, it's already published. People are yelling at me, and I'm on to the next article, right? With the book, you work on it a couple hours a day. You wake up the next day and you just kind of go right back to it. You work on it a couple hours a day. And what's been hard for me, or what was hard for me, was not hating it by the time I was done with it, right? You read it so many times, you look over it so many times, you wonder if it's any good. By the time you got there, you kind of get, word blind, where you're kind of reading what you think you wrote and not editing it all that well. So it is much easier. My day job is much easier. I don't know how soon I will return to authorship, but it was a cool experience to kind of hold it for the first time. So yeah, give me an address and I will definitely shoot you one that way. And also, congrats on the Hall of Fame thing, by the way.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that. I really do. That was amazing when I got the call a few weeks ago, and then yesterday it all became official. Was a fun day. I'll tell you that, no doubt about it. Thank you for your time. The Baylor 61-58. We were there. All of us were there. And still sometimes hard to imagine, but there have not been many great moments since that time against TCU for Baylor. And as you know, they're having the reunion of the 13 and 14 teams next week. And TCU has owned Baylor. I think it was a Charlie Brewer triple overtime win up in Fort Worth, and that's about it ever since that game.
Yeah, I'm excited to get up there. It's been fun talking to some of the former players and reminiscing about that game. Can't wait to get the article out and to go watch another TCU Baylor game. And most played interstate rivalry in the state. You know, they passed Texas A&M, so it's a big one.
Mike, will you be here before Saturday next week?
No, I'll be up there the second. That'll be the first time.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we were going to bring you into the studio if you were. Thanks for your time. Good luck with the article and also all of what you do covering the great state of Texas, but also the great sport of college football. Around the corner, Zach Gelb will join us at the top of the hour. But Kendall Cal, today at Big 12 Basketball Media Day in Kansas City, what he saw, heard, and everything out of there. And, of course, it's a hell of a conference, a heck of a conference with so many great teams and players and coaches, too. That's next. This is 365 Sports. Allen Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. There are various specials, discounts, brands that have these specials that go on in the month of October, which continues with Ram and Jeep or whatever. But one thing that is there all the time, they have cars. They have pre-owned cars, a lot of them. And they have a bunch of the beautiful cars that I mentioned, from Ram trucks to Jeep to Wagoneers to so much more, and the incentives that go with that. They have a bunch of cars on their lot because they have the ability to get what they need at Allen Samuels. General manager, of course, and as CEO is Ted Teague. And what they need, what you need to buy. They have incentives, ask them about it. They have discounts, ask them about it. Dealer discounts, of course, constantly. Ram truck days, power days always seem to be going on. Adventure days for Jeep. It's Allen Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Loop 340 and east of 84 in Waco.
Get ready, Baylor fans. The ultimate game weekend experience awaits you at the Baylor Club. Kick off your weekend with our Friday Night Live pep rally. With live entertainment and special appearances from the Baylor Spirit Squad, it's the perfect way to start your game weekend with a roar. On Saturdays, don't miss our Knox Hall tailgate. Enjoy delicious food, ice-cold drinks, and great company as you gear up for the big game. And after the weekend's excitement, wrap it all up with our famous Bear brunches on Sundays. Don't wait. Make your game weekends legendary with the Baylor Club membership today.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Big 12 Conference, we discussed quite a bit, of course, football and what they're doing, the teams who are trying to meet in Arlington in early December, but basketball is around the corner. Today, Media Day, Kansas City. Kendall Cal covers college basketball in a great way for 365 Sports and SicEm365.com. And an award-winning attorney When that was just a few weeks ago, right, Kendall?
I appreciate the shout out on that, Smokey. I was able to win Kansas Prosecutor of the Year, so quite happy, and congratulations to you on the Hall of Fame induction. Well-deserved honor. I can't think of anybody better who's really covered the game of high school football in Texas, Smokey, so very proud for you.
Thank you. Congratulations to you. All right. What if there's so many good teams, so many great coaches, a lot of fantastic players? What, in your opinion, were a couple of the storylines that what you heard today when you were there?
I primarily focused on Baylor today, Smokey. I think the focus for Baylor is how good they can be 1 through 8. Obviously starts at the top with the 2 Final Four participants in Norchad Omier, who's the Miami transfer, who will start at power forward, along with Jeremy Roach, who will begin the year at point guard for Baylor and has the ability to play some off the ball like he did at Duke as well. Both players have played in recent Final Fours in their college career. On top of that, VJ Edgecombe, there was a lot of hype around him, the incoming Big 12 Freshman of the Year. So Baylor obviously challenging themselves early quite a bit with Gonzaga and Arkansas, but I think that was one of the big storylines. And then what looms, I think, in the Big 12 is, can Houston finally break through and make a national championship game and win it all under Kelvin Sampson? And then can KU return to the precipice of where the Jayhawks expect to be after quite a disappointing season last year for Bill Self and company?
Kendall, you said Jeremy Roach will begin the year as Baylor's point guard. Why when you said move off the ball, but who else would replace him in that?
So, Paul, I didn't have anybody tell me that the replacement would happen, but I do feel like Rob Wright has played so well in those 2 scrimmages and is such a great guard that the pieces may eventually lead to a point guard by committee. KU under Frank Mason and Devontae Graham kind of played that lineup where Frank Mason brought the ball up, but Devontae Graham initiated a lot of sets. Baylor fans certainly remember the Davion Mitchell, Jared Butler era. I'm not saying there'll be Davion Mitchell, Jared Butler this season, 2 of the best guards in the history of the Big 12 Conference, but Rob Wright is so good, and he's so elite at breaking down defenses. Our own Ashley Hodge had mentioned previously that former NBA head coach Alvin Gentry said, oh, that guy's a Big 12 starter. And I think if he were at pretty much any program besides Baylor, KU, or Iowa State, maybe Houston as well, but I think the other 10 schools, he would clearly be the starting point guard. And I think by the end of the season, it might be a committee assignment, but I think he's going to get a lot of possessions as Baylor's point guard.
You had a lot of positive updates on Langston Love. 100% a go. We'll be ready for Gonzaga and other notes as well that people can read in our on the website and in the forum section. But what are your thoughts on just his contributions this year, Kendall? The meaning behind the full health and you know the big picture with all that with Love and Baylor.
Greg, I think he's essential. We talk all the time about schematics, whether it be football or basketball. But eventually in important games, it kind of comes down to the play's been destroyed because whatever team you play in the NCAA tournament or the Big 12 tournament has scouted you so in depth that everyone on the court knows what you're trying to do. In those moments, what matters is who can create plays. Whether, it was Davion Mitchell, Maceo Teague, Jared Butler in the championship era, Adam Flagler late making shots against Gonzaga a couple of years ago in South Dakota. For this Baylor team, Langston Love, I think, is one of the best shot creators on his own. I asked him today, where do you prefer to get the ball? And he laughed and said, anywhere, because he feels confident he can score from anywhere. And one of the big hindrances those last few seasons for Baylor has been the inability to have Langston Love in that round of 32 game. I think Scott Drew agrees, that if he had been healthy last season, Baylor would have had a pretty good shot to beat Clemson. And I think if he's healthy this season, Baylor will return to at least the second week into the NCAA tournament.
How, on his missing a lot of games, we know that a lot of it's bad luck. Is he injury prone or just it's been fluky stuff?
This is a great question, Smokey, where I think you can take either side. It's bad luck. I mean, the guy gets hit in the eye, tries to go, can't do it. But then he just keeps picking up these random injuries. I think, as somebody who luckily has not picked those up, I would prefer to be in Langston Love's shoes, where all you wonder about is, okay, my eye's going to get hit. Is somebody going to poison the cookie I'm about to eat? I prefer that livelihood as opposed to the livelihood of, oh my God, my knee's blown out again. My knee blew out again. My knee blew out again. That you at least know, okay, how many times can one man really be hit in the eye? So there's some hope that the eyes will be safe this season. And if not, maybe Langston Love will rock the frames on the court.
The old Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Who are the other guys that played?
Kurt Rambis.
Kurt Rambis.
Yeah, Kurt Rambis.
James,
Yeah.
I don't think Worthy did, but there's a few that did have the goggles when they played. Protect the eye. I mean, you can't do much without them. Kendall Cal with us, Sikkim365.com basketball analyst.
Kendall, and I know you haven't dove into the Big 12 as a whole yet, but this is a very deep league, especially from about 1 to 7. Kansas State has put a roster together that is really going to be tough. It's going to be long and fast and all of that. Who do you think are the ones built depth-wise with Baylor, you said 1 to 8, that can really hang throughout the season, which is attrition and injuries and all of that?
Paul, that's the great question, because certainly since Baylor won the national championship and KU followed it up with the national championship, so these last 2 seasons, I think the Big 12's been maybe fairly attacked that the NCAA tournament performance has not quite matched up to what the regular season performance has been for the Big 12. And if for folks who listen to Ashley Hodge and I did a podcast, when you look at Texas Tech's non-conference basketball schedule, if the Big 12 flames out in the tournament, people will point to non-conference schedules like that as opposed to Baylor and KU's non-conference schedule and say, that's why the league's not performing as well. Those specific teams, Paul, I think clearly Houston, it is national championship or bust this season. LJ Cryer, as we all know from covering him, fifth-year senior, Jawan Roberts, the talent they have there. Bill Self, obviously, with that early flame out, there are questions about KU, but they bring in A.J. Storr from Wisconsin. They have all 3 guys back, and I was there. Smokey and I were covering the NCAA tournament in 2021 when KU got pounded by USC and Hinkle Fieldhouse. Then they turned back around, bring back Christian Brown, Ochai Agbaji. Next season, they're national champions. So Bill Self, I think, hopes that formula exists. Arizona is probably that team that it's interesting to wonder about. We all covered that game in Dickies Arena when Baylor fell to North Carolina, when Caleb Love made a lot of shots that day, along with R.J. Davis. Somehow this man is still in college, so is R.J. Davis. I think Arizona would probably say, like Houston, it's national championship or bust, because both programs probably feel like, this is the year we really think we can make a run at it. So I think those two are national championship or bust. I think for Baylor and KU, the goal is probably let's get back to a Final Four and hope something can kind of go right that final weekend.
I know, like Paul said, you're kind of wading into the Big 12 waters, but do you have any type of a feel on the 3 new head coaches at West Virginia, Oklahoma State, or BYU? Does one perhaps stand out more than the others, or one that you think can come in and make things more interesting?
Craig, I think clearly BYU is in an incredible spot to win both in football and in basketball. When you go to media days, I know you all are in press row during the Super Bowl sometimes, Smokey especially. Y'all cover events everywhere all the time. One thing that really grinds my gears about media days is everybody asks the same question. But the one kind of out of nowhere question, which can kind of hint to you something's up, is a lot of people would ask, hey, BYU seems to have a lot of money, Scott. Or they'd ask other coaches, I think they asked TJ Otzelberger as well at Iowa State, what's going on with BYU? That school has somehow, through the money they've been able to get from the Suns owner, as well as through the former Celtics GM, a lot of money together in the NIL fund. And it sounds like they're the favorites right now to land the number 1 prospect in next year's class, who I think wants to get the most amount of money that he can. Baylor had previously been in on him. It sounds like the check was going to be about as high as imaginable, and it sounds like BYU will win his services. So I think the NIL possibility, the NBA style that Kevin Young will play with, I think BYU is well set up both in football and in basketball. I remember there were jokes about Baptist gold back in the day when Baylor landed Jarrett Stidham. I think we're going to hear about Mormon gold or Mormon money or whatever alliteration we go with, because the good times are about to be rolling in Provo.
All right, this non-conference schedule, and Scott has not been afraid to pack it, but Gonzaga to open up with, and that was going to be a neutral game. It changed. Arkansas. St. John's with Pitino. Arkansas has a guy named what, Paul? Calipari?
Yeah.
Who's there? Tennessee with Rick Barnes and UConn. They're not bad either. They just win national titles. Is this their best non-conference schedule ever?
That's a great question, Smokey. I think it is, especially because the championship team did not get to play Gonzaga with that random COVID pause that happened in Indianapolis where they wouldn't let them play the game. They played Illinois that season, which Baylor ended up housing before Loyola took them out in the second round. So I think those 4 teams, along with St. John's, and especially Rick Pitino wanting to get some revenge for Baylor, coming back from down 20-plus points to win the battle for Atlantis in the 2016-2017 season. Gonzaga certainly wanting to beat Baylor, with Baylor beating them both in the national championship game. Then in a very cold fall day in South Dakota. I won't insult the South Dakota fans because unlike the OU fans that come after me with some ammunition. So I don't want to attack them. But I think that you look at those 5 games, also looking at how the Spokane game going to have almost exclusively Gonzaga fans. Arkansas will travel very well to that game against Baylor. That neutral game is their second game in Dallas. So that is a very tough non-conference schedule for Baylor and a possibility to maybe take some lumps early in the season.
How big a dude is Omir?
Is he listed at 6'10"? I haven't looked at the new roster for where they're listed.
I don't know, but his shoulders, I happened to see him, but it was kind of from afar. He seems to be somebody that would play linebacker in football or what defensive end. He's an alpha.
I think so. I was at the Miami Texas game in the Elite Eight a couple of years ago. And yeah, he's a big gentleman. And that was probably Texas's last good shot to make it back to a Final Four. So you look at you want to take your chances when you have them. Credit to Norchad there with Miami, and now he has another opportunity with Baylor to make it back to that final weekend.
You brought this up earlier, and we appreciate your time, Kendall. But the Big 12, we hear about the strength. We hear about, in fact, the national titles, and that's great. Were you there? Did somebody make the comment, or did Jerome Tang make the comment that the Big 12 in men's basketball is like the SEC in football? Were you there when he said that?
I did not hear him say that, Smokey, but I do think that comment's very accurate. In fact, I think that the Big 12, though, clearly has, in my mind, those top 5 teams, those 5 that are ranked top 10 AP, but all the teams are ranked top 90 in KenPom. So whereas a lot of years the SEC, you go to Vanderbilt, anybody can win at Vanderbilt. The Big 12, I think, is built better than that. And to be fair to the SEC, I think any Big 12 team is better than Oklahoma football is when you look at basketball. And if you look at basketball as well, I think any Big 12 team is better than Oklahoma basketball as well. So, still waiting for an apology from the Sooner fans for what I said.
I knew that was going to come up. Either you were going to bring it up yourself or I was going to bring it up, but we were going to get to Oklahoma football somehow or another. And I think I asked you this the last time we brought it up, but did nobody ever took you up on that $1,000 offer, did they?
No, it was crazy, Craig, that I was told both, where can I place this bet? I want to place the bet now. This man doesn't even have $1,000 to his name. I'm getting married in January, so it'd be harder for me to make many of those bets I could have made back then. But not a single person took me up on the bet. So unfortunately, to all the charities of the world that could have been taking on Oklahoma's money, you won't have that because the Sooners did not believe in their team enough, which I think does speak to the intelligence of the OU fan base, recognizing with Lincoln Riley gone, the Valleys might have been coming.
I would not. I'm going to tell you right now, if I was sitting across in the courtroom defending my guy,
this guy's
with
assassin.
Kendall, I'd just be like, hey, listen, I know I told you I could win this thing, but he offered a deal, and if you can do 6 years, let's do that.
Yeah. No, he's just and he doubles down too. He doubles down on it. Kendall, great stuff as always. Thanks for jumping on with us today to give us a little perspective out of what happened in Kansas City, and cannot wait. What a season. What a bunch of great teams, and hopefully the Big 12 does better when they get to the tournament than they did last year. Thanks for your time.
Always appreciate it, gentlemen.
As Kendall Cal, Prosecutor of the Year in the beautiful state of Kansas.
I don't think I'd be like people tell me. I think I'm our default lawyer here because I guess I am. I mean, but I'm like the amateur lawyer. I think, but I think I get too heated in my arguments. I would be.
Yeah,
I'm a little too inherit the wind. If you remember that play you had to read in high school,
I didn't go to a school that made me read
like
that.
really fiery, where they're like,
kind of foo-foo ass high school you go to, inherit the wind. No, I don't know that either. I went to dumb old East Texas high school, I guess.
Yeah. So anyway,
inherit the wind.
We were reading Adventures of Tom
By
Sawyer.
By the way, there was a discussion. There you go. And I don't even remember. Gone with the Wind.
No.
I'm your Huckleberry.
Now think about it, you did go to a Catholic high school, so you did go to more of a foo-foo than I went to.
No, it's true.
Yeah, so you actually did. That wasn't even a joke. Now that I think about it.
Did Sister Mary make you read that?
I didn't have a Sister Mary, but yeah.
So one of the notes about Jerome Tang, and I saw this flare up. It was in the chat room earlier. Jerome Tang saying that the Big 12 in basketball is the same as SEC football. It's the best conference and the best recruits that want to play here. There were some that took that as if it was a shot at the Big 12 in football. He was actually complimenting the basketball conference in comparison to how deep and good and how much we know the SEC is done. But the Big 12 did have a down year in the tournament last year, and they do need to bounce back from that too. All right, when we come back, Zach Gelb, Infinity Sports Network on many things, college football, and this is 365 Sports. Ideal MRI, Dr. Rob Maxey and his partners. What a great place. A place that's going to help you find out what is bothering you the most. I went back in about, a month or so ago to get one more look inside their state-of-the-art imaging machine of my lower back, and there's just a couple of things that at times can flare up a nerve or two. It seems like whenever I have some major pain, it's not like a bone or a ligament, which is probably good news, but there are things with nerves you just can't do. You just got to let it go, and at times that's what happens. Something's rubbing up against a certain part of my lower back, and they have even better, clearer pictures than I had from 3 or 4 years ago. State-of-the-art imaging, that's what they have. And then also, an MRI can average up to $1,100 or more dollars. So this is $497. Every time, $497 every time. It's worth the drive from where you are in the state of Texas, because you're not going to get that, but you get it here inside the Central Texas Marketplace in Waco. Ideal MRI, state-of-the-art imaging machine, $497 or less. It's not a trick. It's not one of those like you put a carrot out in front of somebody. It's $497 or less. IdealMRI.com.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Midway Athletics and UBO Business Services are two names that exude winning. From Midway's top Central Texas Star test scores to college-like extracurricular facilities and UBO Business Services' industry-leading customer service scores, you can trust in these two winning programs. Best of luck to Coach Joe Gillespie and the Midway Panthers. And look at your sticker on your office equipment. If it does not say UBO, call Midway Class of 2020, Duff, Daxon, Dane, or Sean Hunt at 254-709-2101 or ubeo.com.
Our good friend Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jewelers here at 365 Sports. Now, Brad, people who watch and listen to our show know I'm a double-time customer for you, engagement ring and wedding band, and you guys do that great, but that's not all you do at Boozer's Jewelers.
Absolutely. And I always like to say, it's a new year. It's a great way to start the year out. Go through your old jewelry. Go through your wife's jewelry box. Go through anything you're maybe not wearing, something that's broken, something that you're not using. We do a massive amount of custom work. We can take your old jewelry, old diamonds, old watches, and we can convert it into something special for you and make a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. And if that's not something you're interested in, a great thing is we can turn that into cash. So we buy gold, we buy diamonds, we'll buy Rolex watches, any kind of heirloom jewelry, anything that's maybe passed down to you.
Boozer's Jewelers, where do they find you, Brad?
We're at 1025 North Valley Mills Drive, right on the corner of Lake Air Drive and Valley Mills with the big clock on the corner.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. This segment is brought to you by Busch Light, the sound of refreshment. The coldest and smoothest light lager there is. Find Busch Light near you.
Zach Gelb, Infinity Sports Network, will join us here momentarily on 365 Sports. And Zach, of course, national broadcast talk show host and loves college football. Absolutely loves college football. We'll have Zach here momentarily. And I saw a little note that he had about the Chiefs acquiring DeAndre Hopkins, and he said, shame on anybody else that has hopes of being a Super Bowl team that they allowed that trade to occur without getting involved.
Well, it's frustrating, and Zach, I know, is ready for us now.
Okay, good.
Yeah, he's in the Thunderdome, so to speak. As a Cowboys fan, I watch it and I see Amari Cooper getting traded, and I see DeAndre Hopkins and all this. And what league does Jerry Jones think that he's in compared to the friggin' Chiefs who still go out and improve their team, even though Patrick Mahomes needs DeAndre Hopkins way less than Dak Prescott needs the help.
Yeah, 100% right. The thing is, Jerry Jones doesn't care about actually winning on the field anymore. He evaluates a successful season based off how much drama he could stir up. So I don't even when I said that, I know I was like, shame on the other 30 teams. I'm talking about contenders. Let's be real. The Cowboys aren't contenders. So the all-in comments were a bunch of bull crap, but this is a football team right now. The Cowboys, it's not crazy. Now we'll see if the kicker's going to be there. He's like on he's on jury duty now.
Yeah.
Brandon Aubrey. I was just reading that before I got on, but in a weird way, I kind of think the Cowboys are alive to win this game this weekend up against the Niners just because of how banged up San Francisco is.
Man, and with Debo possibly out, I don't know if they've made that decision yet, and obviously losing Ayuk the week before. It would be – I've said this many times, and there's historical reasons. Cowboys, when they are against the wall, they went to Pittsburgh and found a way to win the game. Then Pittsburgh switches to Russell Wilson and probably would have won that game if they would have played quarterback. Zach, Georgia, Texas, so much that went on the field. And then obviously there was the disruption and all that. But just your thoughts how Georgia came out, and it was almost as if Kirby had put red meat outside of their cage.
What Alabama did to Georgia in that first half is what Georgia did to Texas. That was the statement. Okay, people are doubting us. People are saying maybe we've fallen off. No. We're going to come on out and we're going to smoke you. And then eventually the team that you're playing is a good football team, so they're going to punch back. The DPI call, it should have not been called, but once you do call it, and then you have the fans throw all the bottles and the trash onto the field, even though the call ended up being right, the process and how it got right was absolutely atrocious. And now Kirby Smart's right. If you are a home fan and you don't get a call that you like, throw trash on the field. Maybe they'll overturn the call. But Georgia and Oregon, what we are seeing now, they are the two best teams in college football. Heck, if we still had 4 teams in the playoff, now we get 12. I don't even know who we pick for 4 teams. Like, there's just not a lot of great teams this year. But what we've seen so far, the 2 teams I'm most confident with are Georgia and Oregon. On the flip side of that, Texas, you got to show up in that game. And then you take out Quinn Ewers because you want Arch's mobility. And then you quickly pull Arch, you put Quinn Ewers in. That just looked like Texas not showing up in a big spot.
We were talking about how fun this season has been. I know we can kind of be prisoners of the moment, Zach, but college football does seem like it's always crazy, but it's been a particularly extra level of crazy this year. Are we just prisoners of the moment, or do you think there is something to that, and what would you attribute that to? Here's some of the reasons we came up with. There's the realignment that's making for bigger matchups like a Georgia-Texas. There's no Nick Saban, which just makes it more interesting at the very top. And then there's obviously the expanded playoff. What do you think about, is this more of an exciting year, and if so, why?
I think more people are going to say, hey, it's because of the playoff and we all have a chance. But I think what you said first is 100% right. It is, with all the alignment changes, we are now getting these big-time matchups, and the scheduling this year is working out in our favor. And I hope we see some big non-conference matchups and continue that moving forward, because you could afford to drop a game now and still make the college football playoff. But I don't care if people want to say it's a prisoner of the moment. Like, you guys know me. I love the NFL. I love college football. Give me football any day of the week. I'm all in. But I did say this on my show yesterday. I think I'm starting to love college football or enjoy college football more than the NFL. Like, college football on Saturdays this year, it has been awesome each and every weekend. Even the weekend when it was supposed to be terrible, you had Vanderbilt beating Alabama. You had like 7 things go on that weekend. In college, in the NFL, there's a lot of like sloppy, pedestrian, ugly football these days.
One of the things about watching the NFL, and I have the games up as soon as you get to noon or whatever, noon central. And I have the YouTube TV, so there's that game where you can get like 3 or 4 at a time.
No, yeah, you're a multicast guy now.
Yeah, exactly. And then I have the screen in front of me where my desk is here where I live. And I just see too many flags.
Yeah.
I just there's everything's a penalty. It's like they've overruled or officiating the game. In college football, there's too many delays because of replay, and it seemed like that game with Georgia, Texas had a bunch. But in the NFL, it just seemed like there's no rhythm. Maybe when they get down in October or late November, et cetera, it changes. But I don't feel like there is any kind of rhythm.
You bring up a great point, because I was at that Jet-Bills game, and there was a flag for people just breathing in that game. It was terrible. But in college, even though they don't have a preseason, they train pretty much all throughout the year. Mm-hmm. So you get a crisper product, or it takes not that long to get to the crisp product. Now you can't do so many things in the CBA where the preseason's irrelevant. Training camp is nowhere close to what it used to be. If you said a 2-a-day, now you get locked up and charged with football war crimes now. So I think because there's more of a build up to the season and there's more training in the season in college, maybe that's why you get a better product. Because a lot of these flags, like, you could always find the flag that you don't like, but a lot of these penalties are legit, and it's because the guys just aren't in game shape right now.
That's a good point. It's not that the officials are flag happy. It's the way the league runs it. But also, there's a lot of sloppy play.
I totally agree with you. Zach, what do you think about Alabama slipping? Now, Saban's gone, so the door's open. They're not hoarding talent like they used to or able to because he's gone. Do you think Kalen DeBoer will get the grace from the all too understanding Alabama fans to point them back in the direction that they're used to?
I think the people on Twitter, when they don't make the playoff, if they don't make the playoff, it's inexcusable. Now, with that being said, I think I'm like the biggest believer in Kalen DeBoer on the planet. I do think he's going to have success there. I do think he's going to win a national championship there. But to beat Georgia, then you lose to Vanderbilt, bad performance even in a win up against South Carolina, and they should have been up by more at halftime up against Tennessee, and it came back to bite them in the you-know-what in the second half. You missed the playoff now in a 12-team format. I don't think that grace period is really going to be there. Now, let's be clear. They're not moving on from him. They're not firing him. They'd be the biggest dopes on the planet to do so. But that fan base, if you would have missed a 14 playoff, but you finished like 7th in the country, I think they would understand. You finish like 14, 15, 16th in the country, you missed a 12-team playoff, that's going to be inexcusable and understandably so for the Alabama fan. And I had Alabama in the Natty this year, losing to Georgia. But what has happened the last 3 weeks, man, I did not see this one coming.
Boise State, UNLV, I don't think that, many people would be able to, if you just picked a college football out, necessarily be able to riff on this game like they could, maybe bigger brands, but there's very interesting storylines here, not only because both are vying for that coveted G5 spot, but you got a running back on Boise's side who's trying to become this unlikely Heisman, and you've got this amazing story with UNLV where they had a quarterback decide he's going to bolt at the beginning of the year, and the guy who's replaced him is actually better. Zach, what interest level do you have at all in this G5 showdown between Boise State and UNLV?
So I don't know if you guys could guess this, but the 3 games this weekend that I'm most interested in, I just talked about this before I got on. Boise State and UNLV is definitely one of them. I think you could get the other one. The third one, though, there's no shot you're going to get it. Do you have any idea the other 2 games that I'm most excited for this weekend?
A&M LSU?
That's 100% the one that I knew you guys were going to get. I don't think you'll get the next one.
Nebraska, Ohio State.
No.
Oh, my God.
As much as we love our guy, Matt Rule, if they got blown out. No, we still do love Matt, but geez, they got smoked by Indiana, and they didn't even have their quarterback for the second half, Indiana, but Cignetti has everything rolling there.
Notre Dame Navy.
Nope, not Notre Dame Navy.
Okay.
You want me to give it to you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thursday night, Syracuse Pitt.
That was my
Fran
second
Brown,
choice. That was my second choice.
That is going to, and I'm not a fan of Syracuse. I love Fran Brown, but that's going to be a soundbite epic game afterwards. Whoever wins, Narduzzi or Fran Brown, and the way both quarterbacks are playing right now, that's a game Thursday night. I know you got Amazon Prime with the Thursday night game this week with the Vikings and the Rams playing, but that's going to be a heck of a game. I can't wait for that one.
Yeah, that's a good call. That's a great game. Yeah,
I'm really happy for Kyle McCord, who got shoved out the door after losing a game. Zach, he lost one game, and then here we go. He's there and putting up numbers. And they also changed the offensive coordinator. It seemed like a stupid thing at the time to me. I'm thrilled for him at Syracuse.
Yeah, so I knew that Kyle McCord last year. I just said he's not going to beat Michigan. I just didn't see it. Even when they won that game up against Notre Dame, remember, Notre Dame had too many men on the field, and, they dropped an interception as well. So I just didn't think he was a big game quarterback. But just because you're not good enough or great enough for Ohio State doesn't mean that you shouldn't be going somewhere better than what you would think is Syracuse. So that's been a good match this year, and he's playing well. Yeah, you're right. It's a feel-good story. It's tough not to root for him.
When you were watching what Rule did at Temple, Fran Brown, of course, has been on his staff. He was at the staff at Baylor, now at Syracuse. Did you see head coaching material in him?
I'll be honest. I thought Fran Brown was a really good assistant, and I thought he had to grow up a lot to be a head coach. And when Syracuse hired him, that was a really good spot for him. And to bring over his pal, one of his good friends, Elijah Robinson, I know Fran well. I'm very happy to see his success, because there were times when, the Temple job was open and he's like, oh, why is it my name on your list of guys? And I was just a little concerned about Fran. But to see what has happened the last 3-4 years, Fran Brown definitely became someone that when Syracuse made the hire, I'm like, man, he has really grown up like we all do, right? And that's someone that, I think understood more of the coaching side of it and found a way. And I love his emotion. One of my favorite people to talk to, when he left to go to Baylor, he told me that decision to leave Temple, he cried more, just as much as that day when his mom passed away. I'll never forget that conversation when he had, and he said he wanted to be the head coach there one day. So it's, disappointing for my school. They couldn't get their act together and actually hire him the last time around. I don't know what they were doing. But Fran Brown has taken he was always a good guy and a good coach, but I thought there was a little bit of maturing before becoming a head coach, and he clearly has done that.
All right, let's go back to what we brought up. Our friend Matt Rule, Nebraska, they have Ohio State. They're about to lose back-to-back games. Let's be honest. They had no chance in that game with Indiana. I know they had a fumble inside about the 15 or so. That was dominant. That was impressive. Kurt Cignetti, what he's done everywhere he's been, like he says, Google his name.
Yeah, he wins.
Indiana is really good on both sides of the football and a feel-good story, Zach.
And you look at their schedule the rest of the way. I know their quarterback's out this week against Washington. We'll see if he's back after that. The reporting indicates he will be so after the surgery, so a quick fix. I think that culture is going to win out. And I would have never said this last week. I would have never said this, even thought of it. You'd think I would be on like drugs or something before the start of the season. They should only lose one game, and that's the game to Ohio State. And a one-loss Indiana team, that should be a playoff team. And who would have ever thought we would have been saying that?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Don't look at the name of the school, look at the resume. And they're explosive enough to be dangerous, no matter who they're playing. I would think, Ohio State's going to have too much for them. But, this Cignetti looks like when he's up 42-7, he's got this look like he's trying to figure out, how can I, fly to the moon or some crazy invention. He's just an assassin-type look.
You know who he reminds me of? He reminds me a little bit like Dan Campbell. When Dan Campbell took over the Lions, came in talking a big game, people are like, who the bleep is this guy, and why are you talking this big game? You got to, in order to change a program like that. You got to have this little bit crazy football side of you where you're just so passionate about what you do when some people think you're crazy. And it's obviously worked for Dan Campbell, and it's working so far for Cignetti over at Indiana.
Okay, A&M LSU was the one you were second most excited for. Do the Aggies have enough to get over on LSU? They do not normally do well. In fact, they are 0-8 against LSU when both teams are ranked all time.
I will flip-flop on this game about 100 more times before I have to make a prediction on Friday. Do I think A&M can win the game? Absolutely. This A&M team is 1,000% different than the A&M team that we saw week 1 up against Notre Dame. What Elko has done this quickly, all the credit to him. I just think this game means so much to Brian Kelly. Say what you want about Brian Kelly. He's a damn good football coach. He says some weird things. He's cringeworthy at times. He the whole accent, but this is a big one for LSU, for the LSU family. All right. It's a big one. Right now, if you maybe pick today, I would go LSU, but I will probably change that 3,000 times. I am flipping back and forth on this game already through the week.
And they've gotten better. It's like early in the year, you kind of wondered
USC,
who they were. Yeah, they lost to USC, and of course, we've seen what's happened to USC after they lost to Maryland.
Yeah, what an overrated coach, by the way, Lincoln Riley. I've been on that train for years. Good coach. People think he invented football and he's the greatest coach ever. He's never won a playoff game. People forget that.
Can he and Oklahoma reunite already? They both desperately need it at this point.
Oh, yeah, and Venables stinks too. He should go back and be Dabo's a defensive coordinator. Whoever Venables' agent is, a genius. He got a 6-year extension in this summer. Genius.
Yep, absolutely. Zach, great talking to you, man. Good to see you. Have a great week. Good luck with all the shows you have, and enjoy the weekend, sir.
You got it. You guys as well. Thank you.
Zach Gelb, Infinity Sports Network, with us on a bunch of anything football. We appreciate him being a part of the show.
I feel bad for his Mets.
I didn't want to bring that up.
No, I didn't want to bring it up. I'm just saying.
Hey, I got some. Craig brought up baseball and games 1 and 2 coming up. Why in the world? Now, I know you can't change the season because of anybody else. And I know that once you set the playoff schedule, you can't just that series ended early, let's start on Wednesday. But why would baseball, knowing the power of the NFL, so you don't want to play on Thursday, or you try to avoid Thursday, you need to avoid Sunday, and you surely should avoid Monday night. And then you have what college football right now having some of their best ratings games ever. So why not? Well, let's try to stay away from Saturday. But they're starting on Friday and Saturday. And I don't understand that. I understand the schedule. But why would they not want to be like a Tuesday, Wednesday start?
Yeah, I don't know. You can't, again, they had to prepare for Game 7s and all that stuff if they were to happen. But
No, I'm not trying to say change.
Hey,
but why not official from the beginning?
Okay.
Games 1 and 2 will be on a Tuesday, Thursday.
Let me tell you what the difference would be. So say they only have 2 days. Well, what's the difference between that and the season you've just been playing?
Well, media days.
Yeah, I guess.
No, you got travel.
Yeah, but even still, you could do 2 days. One could be the travel day, one could be the media day, and then you're ready to go. Baseball players know this. As a matter of fact, I think you could ask a lot of the players that they're like, yeah, no, we'd rather go right now, especially if you just had 4 hits in the last game. You're probably like, yeah, can I get back out there and get in the rhythm?
The pitchers probably do enjoy the break because you're starting to see relief pitchers start games in the postseason.
Well, they do the bullpen games.
Yeah, so I just thought about that they start on Friday, Saturday. I would love to be able to watch it. I do love the tradition of the Dodgers and the Yankees. I'm not a fan of those aren't my favorite teams outside of the Rangers. But I just wondered about why they wouldn't place the games, at least some of those games, of 7 of them, as much as they can, because they're going to get beat up by college football and also the NFL anytime. When we come back, Craig sent this story to us earlier today about the Cowboys and the Star, where they practice, their facility that Jerry has, and some potential. And we'll get feedback from you. Now, my laptop, it didn't crash, but I didn't bring my laptop charger, and I thought I had enough to get through the show, so I won't be able to get in the chat room. But RJ Ochoa retweeted a story from SI.com on the Cowboys and former players speaking out about what is a kind of zoo mentality when it comes to practicing at the Star. That's next. This is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on for all of your automotive needs. And as recently as last week, I was counting on them to take care of my vehicle and can vouch for their professionalism, their great timing, and the job that they did on my car. It was quick, to the point, and definitely, a situation where I walked away without all the stress that you typically get when you're trying to deal with a dealership. So right now, go become a member of the Richard Carr family and take advantage of some of their scary savings event pricing. A scary savings event going on right now here in the month of October. Savings so big that they are terrifying on pre-owned cars and trucks at Richard Carr. And right now you can save $8,000 or more on all 2024 GMC Sierra SLT trucks in stock. They've got the AT4X Sierras 4-wheel drive versions, which have bigger savings as well. You can find a multitude of Sierra trucks right now under $40,000. So there's just one of the various new cars car options that you have at your disposal. Maybe you're looking to kind of go for a little bit of curveball and go the electric vehicle route. Well, if you're in the market for an electric vehicle, they also have the Cadillac Lyriq. It's a must-drive. You'll see and feel the difference over everyday electric vehicles or EVs instantly, so you can come by the dealership right now and test drive the Cadillac Lyriq EV today over at Richard Carr Cadillac. So those are just a couple of the options. They also have a lot full of quality pre-owned cars and trucks as well. And as I mentioned at the very top, that great customer service if you're simply looking to get your car, truck, or SUV fixed like mine, or get your routine oil change or whatever it is that you're looking to do to keep your car in tip-top shape. So go visit the website, Richard Carr. It's KARR.com to check out all their deals. You can go by the dealership as well and give them a phone call during office hours to pick their brain and see what might be up your alley. But treat yourself during the Scary Savings event with a new car, truck, and find monster savings right now over at Richard Carr, richardcarr.com off Highway 6, the Imperial exit.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses. When it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Is your car ready for a makeover? Get ready to fall in love with your ride again at City Tire and Battery. City Tire and Battery is family owned and has provided expert service with top quality products since 1942. And with financing available, there's no reason to put off those much needed upgrades. Give your car the love it deserves and go see City Tire and Battery, located at 1502 South Valley Mills in Waco.
When we moved to Texas, we were like fish out of water. We didn't know anyone in our neighborhood until our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent came to the house. She was so helpful and reassuring, a friendly face with that Texan hospitality I'd heard about. When we purchased a Texas Farm Bureau insurance policy, we knew we were making the right choice. We knew our family would be protected.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is brought to you by Edward Jones and financial advisor Cam Heathcott. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Here we go, this 5 o'clock hour. We'll get to the story that I teased in just a moment about the Star in Frisco, the Cowboys headquarters. Craig?
Yeah, I had something else I wanted to mention before we get into that, and it is college football related, and that is the fact that Oregon State has released its 2025 schedule. And the interesting thing about this is just the fact that it's makeshift, right? This is their last year that they'll be playing before the new Pac-12. And for some, then they'll eventually join the Big 12, right? That's still a possibility, a hope, but I don't know. They're building the pack, but they still got a year to go before they get to that. And so they've announced their 2025 schedule, and wanted to get your guys' thoughts on what they were able to scrounge together, including a very interesting little part of this schedule. So they will open up on August the 30th with Cal. So you get your Pac-12 matchup there, your old Pac-12 matchup. They've got Fresno State at home.
Is this both of them, or who's we?
This is Oregon State.
Oregon State, okay, yeah.
Fresno State at home. They will travel to Texas Tech.
Okay.
Whoa, I'm sorry, my God. And of all things, go ahead, Craig, go ahead. I was trying to find that schedule. Go ahead.
They will then travel to Oregon to close out the first month. So there you go. Cal, Fresno State, at Texas Tech, at Oregon. It's pretty nice little first month of the season.
Yeah.
Host Houston.
Okay.
Go to Appalachian State. Then they'll get a bye. Then it appears will host 4 straight home games, which is probably not going to play into the committee's fondness very much, nor that you're going to really be at the top of their thoughts anyways, but you'll host Lafayette, Wake Forest, Washington State, and Sam Houston back-to-back at home. So that's wild to have a full month. And then you include the bye. They actually will be at home for like 5 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
So that's pretty weird. They will go to Tulsa, another bye, and then they close out with Washington State on the road in Pullman. And what you may find kind of interesting about that is not only do they scrounge together a pretty respectable schedule given that they don't have any conference to play around with other than each other. Also, the 5 weeks in a row at home, including a bye week, is that's bizarre how you came to that. But I guess beggars can't be choosers, and you only have so many ways you can go here. What you might also have noticed is they play Washington State home and away.
Yeah.
Home and away. So I don't know. I find that really cool, and I think with the whole thing now put together, they're certainly still looking at a very steep uphill climb for respectability, big picture, but that's a pretty damn good schedule, and the home and away with Washington State is definitely unique in college football.
If either one of them get through what are probably going to be very similar schedules like that, and they should be ranked pretty high, especially having to play each other twice, which is something that you only do normally if you're in a championship game. So
they do it in the NFL all the time. We never say. I know it's a different league, but I don't. Yeah, you're right. So I think it's pretty cool. One, they're just trying to fill out a schedule during this kind of transition, so to speak. And I love the fact that they're both going to play each other good. They might play each other 3 times that year. Who knows? No, that wouldn't happen, would it?
No, there's no conference championship.
Well, the joke is that they will play each other, and they'll play each other home and away. They'll play each other in the conference championship game, and then they'll, play each other in. I don't know. I forget the end of the joke now, but there was another way that they could play each other that was like a 4th meeting between the two. But yeah, if you go play a conference championship game when it's just you two for that one more year, then you could theoretically put together a three game series. And hell, it might be more interesting than a bowl game if you were to do something like that. But no, they're going to play home and away, so that's not unprecedented in college football, and certainly not in the NFL, obviously. But it is very unique, and it is something new that was announced today. So that's pretty interesting. And kudos to Oregon State for putting together a schedule that is pretty salty, given you started off with basically nothing other than knowing you were going to be able to play Wazoo at least once. But yeah, that's pretty good, and got a couple of Big 12 teams on there.
I think it's great what they've done to react to what happened when they were left out. They also have now added people to their conference that's just around the corner. They didn't get all of them because the Mountain West was able to save quite a few too. But those 2 schools and what they were left with was could have been an absolute just disaster. But they've been able to find a way to move on, no matter who you have to play or how many times you have to play, which is a former and current still conference rival. Thank you, Craig, on that one. So the Cowboys, I think they'll win in San Francisco because of what Zach Gelb said. I think San Francisco, I know they've owned Dallas. That's been the 800-pound gorilla, but I just feel like they will. But regardless, forget about all that. They're not playing well. They've made some decisions that obviously they probably would, off the record, admit. But this is something I saw before. There's story out about the Cowboys and the Star, where they practice, how there are tours, fan tours, that are like roaming about. Now, that doesn't mean they're on the field and like getting in the middle of practices, but this is something I'd heard about, that it's almost like a look but don't touch. We experienced a little bit of this, but not as a player. At the Super Bowl, they started to allow fans to come through Radio Row. They kept them kind of at a distance, but you could see them. They would come through Radio Row because sometimes there's a lot of great personalities, media, and or the guest on various shows.
We experienced Big 12 events with media days. You got people touring around the stadium. We did at the Star, people walking around during Pro Day.
I don't know about the Big 12 media. Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah,
but at Super Bowls, no, you're right. At Super Bowls, it can be a little bit noisy.
The one they did it at was Indianapolis the first time.
Oh, my God, yeah.
And that convention center was plenty big for us, but when you put in a fan observing area, it cost us.
It's like a petting zoo.
It cost us Joe Montana, and I'll never forgive Indianapolis for that.
Oh, okay.
I had Joe Montana secured. And then all these 49er fans are like, Joe.
Yeah.
And he stopped, and they're like, well, this is the 5 minutes you had. And I was like, I will never forgive you.
Yeah, so there can be some distractions. But the Cowboys do allow these fan tours. I don't know how many there are. Is there 1 a day, 3 a day, whatever people pay to get those tours? Do you feel like that has anything to do, not so much with this year, but anything to do with sometimes them just not being totally locked in?
I think, and most of the players who mentioned this are all they're all ex-Cowboys. So I don't.
Dalton Schultz?
Yeah, Dalton Schultz, J-Ron Kearse, several. I mean, there's lots of players that were, and then there's people that have, like Ben DiNucci said, when people would come out and be lifting weights, they tap on the glass. That stuff has to not happen, normally. But I think this is just another symptom of, look, they're not. J-Ron Kearse said it, like, that's not the reason you're not winning. But you can't get over the hump. But when you can't get over the hump and you're trying to do your job, and then you've got people like, oh my gosh, there he is, taking pictures and all that, it just makes it harder. And then you start to notice the other things that's just one of the little things that you wouldn't normally care about. As a matter of fact, if they had won the Super Bowl and people were walking through, believe me, they would love it. But they also feel the pressure of the entire city who loves the Cowboys 10 times as much as they love the Mavericks or the Rangers or the Stars or anything else. The city, like the Mavericks, Rangers, and Stars could all sweep their series, win their championships. SMU could win the national title in football in Dallas, and no one would care as much if the Cowboys won the Super Bowl. Like, there's no way, because they are the Cowboys, and because they're not over the hump and all of that, they're just, those things get annoying and annoying and annoying. So you can't, you start blaming all these other things, or you start noticing like, hey, now that I'm here in Houston, in the offseason they traded for Stephon Diggs. That was a cool thing to do. And then you're in Dallas and you're like, hey.
But they did get Amari Cooper that year and made him a lot better.
Which is why it's shocking to me they haven't done it since then.
Well, they also, but I understand the cap, but let's get back to the part of the story.
But
they had to pay a quarterback, a wide receiver, and they haven't even had to pay Micah Parsons yet, a bucket load of money. I mean, you can't have CeeDee Lamb at every position. You can't afford it.
Well, the Eagles are making it work.
Yeah. Are they? They're 4-3 or whatever they're.
But I mean, they're making their cap work.
Yeah.
They have.
Well, at least for now. But I have seen some teams get into cap hell and then they're stuck for 3 years.
But like, if you get they're getting into cap hell without winning. The Rams were in cap hell, right? But guess what happened? They won. So those things all weigh on it.
The Cowboys are winning, but they're not winning playoff games. Like the big.
They won the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
that's the standard. So it's just it's. You get to that point where it's just too much. And then when you've got, Bob and Sue from Iowa that are like, hey, Zeke, hey. You're like, Lee, I don't think it's Bob and Sue.
I think it's like Alfred from South Oak Cliff.
Well, I mean, there's all that, like, believe me, I've been there several times. And the other thing, I'll just tell you, this is kind of amazing. So when they first opened the Star, they would take the media like the longest way around to things. So like the people with the cameras couldn't see things. But then we would be like by the cafeteria and you'd see like the tourists walking through. You're like, they have cameras too. What are you doing?
Dude, it mentions in the article that they're sitting there walking through the cafeteria and they see like Michael Parsons is injured and they're talking about, oh, Michael Parsons is out this week, obviously. Like, he's sitting there like trying to eat lunch and they're just walking by like, look, don't touch. Mm-hmm. And they're just seeing injured Micah Parsons sitting there trying to eat a freaking chicken sandwich or something. Like, where does that happen?
Nowhere else.
Yeah.
It's the only
Here's
place.
a quote. We have 24/7 access to the facility, and it should be a place of solitude, said a recent former player. I come in for extra work at night to use the hot tub or cold tub, and there's fans walking through, poking at you. You're walking by the tour guide, and they're pulling fans to the side. You hear them say, hey, look, there's CD. Like Dalton Schultz said, it's kind of like you're in a zoo, and kids are going to see a lion. So that's a pretty good quote. I like that. But, but that is – Jerry's going to find every way to make every piece of scratch he can.
Says in the article that they make millions of dollars off of this. That's kind of the point, is that it's a money-making operation. It's what they do. But for the players, they like it better elsewhere because it's more about football. Whereas with Dallas, it's very much you're sitting in the cafeteria, you're injured, and this fantasy football owner is walking through commenting on your injury.
Come see Brandon Cooks eat soup.
Yeah.
I mean, like, okay, who cares? Like,
you walk out of the locker room, and there's like 10 people just sitting there with their cameras out.
Well, and the thing is that the media obligations there are more than most places, if not all. I've heard many free agents be like, this is mini camp? Like, how many cameras are there? And
I think that's much more than 10, 20, 15, 20 years ago. Yeah, they had the dominant amount. I think more people are attending mini camp. I think it's getting better. I think that they're not the only ones that have people that care.
No, they're not the only ones that have people that care, but like, Randall Cobb was the one, but of course that's Green Bay. But I've even heard a couple people who are like former Bears or Giants be like, dang, like usually like, and the thing about it is, like, usually on Wednesdays, they'd be like, oh, well, the Yankees are playing, so we won't get half those guys because the Yankees are playing the Orioles, and that's a big game. So a lot of the columnists will skip this, as where the Cowboys, the Rangers could be playing the Angels in a battle for first place. But, if the Randy Galloways of the world are going to be able to go there, they're going to go.
Here's a quote. A few minutes later, a tour guide pauses his speech while the group is stopped at the Cowboys cheerleaders exhibit. Make way for this gentleman, please. And Micah Parsons slowly hobbles past them. Oh, this is from the story by KC Keeler. Oh, my God, he's limping, one woman says. That looks like it's going to be a few more weeks until he can play again. Parsons does not acknowledge the fans, nor does he look bothered by the attention, but the recent former player who requested anonymity says the tours can be exhausting because the players always have to be on, even on Saturday afternoon when they're working before a game to get ready.
They have a glass wall to look into the weight room while these guys work out. It mentions that. That's another Micah Parsons thing, is he's sitting there lifting weights, and there's like an 8-year-old kid pointing, and there's Micah Parsons the whole time. They're telling him, like, don't take pictures, don't say anything, just be weird, I guess, and just stand here and gawk at them like it's a freaking zoo is what it sounds like. It sounds like an actual zoo.
Yeah. They can't make – like, would you pay to go on the tour if it was just walking through the building when the Cowboys weren't there?
No.
Probably not. Like, that's where Jerry's kind of exploiting them, but not kind of, is exploiting them because he can't sell tickets like, hey, would you like to walk through and not see the locker room or not see this? Like, just walk through parts of what is just mostly an office building.
What was the biggest story last week for a while in the NFL when the Cowboys didn't even play a game?
Jerry.
It was Jerry going off on the flagship station. Tony Pollard. This is more about football. Now, he's at Tennessee, and they're not going to get the same kind of coverage, but Nashville's a nice, large market. I'm in a better place mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, just all around. That matters.
Yeah.
That matters. And then again, a lot of people want to go to Dallas like they want to go to New York. When you go to New York, the clubhouse is going to be much more packed with the Yankees, with all due respect to most anybody else in baseball. So that was a story that Craig shared with us earlier today. I would think that would, like, if we were doing this show, which I like those morning shows, ABC, NBC, all those, like, whatever, the Today Show, they do the show in downtown in Manhattan or whatever it is, and they have the windows where it's almost a petting zoo, like people can look but not touch. I wonder if that's a distraction for the news and network people.
They
have their backs to those people.
So they have their backs to the people. Yeah, they'll go out there intentionally to be like, hey, look, here is Bob and Sue from Iowa. Like, where's the sign? Show? Al, I hope I make it to 100.
Yeah. Yeah, but you're right. The backs are to the constant movement of people, especially when we're talking about down in New York.
By the way, Amanda loves the Today Show, and I was down talking to her. I was just watching the other day, and they had somebody, like one celebrity brought their like whiskey brand out there, and they poured it. Al Roker was just like, "Whoop."
Oh, really?
9:10 in the morning was just like, "Pop." Listen, been through a lot. I'm the veteran here. Here we go. Boom.
I haven't watched a morning show on network television or anywhere news. I can't remember.
Well, you don't live with a
You don't
wife.
watch TV.
Yeah.
Huh?
But you also
don't watch TV.
Yeah, but you also don't, like, I didn't, for like, unless I was when I was a kid at my grandmother's house or visiting them, like that's the only time, or if I go see my mom, she watches CBS This Morning every day.
Is that Gail King?
Yeah, it's Gail King and Nate Burleson.
Yeah.
When we were at the Super Bowl a couple years ago and Nate was there, I took a picture of him.
Yeah, he's cool.
And
He's cool, dude.
I said, "Hey, my mom's a big fan," and he said, "That's everybody is." Everybody's mom is. But yeah, I don't see them. But then when I got married, I walked down and watching the morning shows and like, hey. Reese Witherspoon's going to make us a banana pancakes.
Yeah, Nate Burleson, that's pretty talented. He can do what he does. He's on the Sunday shows with the NFL too. But I just haven't. I used to a lot, but I don't now. All right, when we're coming back in just a moment, Paul Catalina and his top 5.
Fantasy Sports EVO, the next evolution of daily fantasy sports. Tired of traditional fantasy sports where you spend hours upon hours studying individual players? EVO's unique team-based platform makes it easier than ever for all sports fans to play. No need to know individual players. Just choose your contest, select your teams, and enjoy the game. Whether you access our website from a desktop, mobile device, or the app, the experience is the same. EVO is for all sports fans. Join Fantasy Sports EVO and experience the evolution.
Welcome into the Wednesday Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Go to bitonbeef.com. Hey, there's an auction coming up. 365 Sports is the promo code that you want to use at checkout. These are top 5 teams you don't want to mess with. Look, I don't think anybody's going undefeated, but if you're going to get in a tussle, these are not the teams I want to tussle with on my way to the college football playoff. Number 5, Texas A&M. I'm going to use this analogy again and again, but I think it stands to reason. When A&M was their most successful, they were a truck driven by a truck driver. That's what R.C. Slocum was. They were efficient. You could knock your way through things with a truck. You could haul things with a truck. That's who they were. Then the SEC and Johnny Manziel happened at the same time, and A&M thought, we can be a Lambo. They're not a Lambo. They were never a Lambo. They were just people pretending to be people who could really pull off a Lambo, but never really ran that way. Mike Elko, that's a dude who drives a truck, and they can once again be a truck, so I don't want to mess with them because they're very efficient on defense, and their offensive line and running game is really lethal, and they've got quarterbacks that they trust, either Connor Wegman or Marcel Reed. I do not want to mess with Texas A&M. Do I think that they might be a playoff team? Do I think they're a championship team? Probably not at this point, but also they're a team that can derail you because they don't really hurt themselves on the field like they have through Kevin Sumlin and Mike Sherman and Jimbo Fisher. They're efficient. They're a truck, and you fear a truck, especially if it's bearing right down on you. Number 4, Indiana. Now look, Curtis Rourke's out for the next couple weeks, but they haven't really played many close games this year. Their offense gets that on you. It's not just passing, it's running as well. They're all over the place. Curt Cignetti has the vibe in that place so good already in year 1. Google me, I win. That's the t-shirt that they're going to have all over Bloomington, Indiana this week. And the joy you see on this guy's face, that's the joy that they play with. And when you do that, you're a really tough team to beat, especially when you can confidently score. Now, we'll see what happens down the line as they get into maybe playing tougher teams, maybe even getting into the playoff. Now, We talked to Zach Osterman from the Indy Star and said pump the brakes on the playoff just yet, but the schedule does certainly line up for them to have a shot at it because they are better than most of the teams remaining on their schedule, at least to this point in the season, and I don't want to mess with Curt Cignetti at all. Number 3, BYU. No matter what happens, no matter how the game goes, they're just able to find it within themselves to make it theirs. Oklahoma State played the best game of their season last week and still lost. They throttled Kansas State. Nobody else has done that. Nobody else has really even come close. Now, some teams have come close to beating them, but they absolutely pummeled Kansas State in Provo and made them like it. They're the only team to beat SMU and slow down an SMU offense that's crazy explosive. BYU is legit. I don't want to mess with Kalani Sitake. Jake Retzlaff has something about him that just makes it go. It's not super spectacular, but it's good, and it's fun to watch. And BYU's a place with great quarterback tradition. Jake Retzlaff's starting to carve out a place in that hall of QB honor that they have there. Number 2, Army and Navy come together on this one. I couldn't put one out and not the other, but there's still a team on this list that I had to include. So maybe today's a top 6. But again, they both play, that tough offense to prepare for. They're very confident right now. They have players who make big plays, and they've incorporated passing into the offense more this year, and they're lethal. We could see Army-Navy twice this year in back-to-back weeks. I don't know how much I want that, but I do. I'm here for the chaos, and I would love to see one of these teams get in the playoff if possible. That would be great, and it would feel like it was 1939 again. And number 1, Iowa State. They are so damn good. Iowa State, BYU had very similar weeks last week. Rocco Becht has really come into his own. He's the perfect quarterback for that offense. They've got really awesome wide receivers. They've got a running game that just doesn't quit, and they've got a defense that, while they do give up a little bit in the running game, they're really, really good. This is the most Matt Campbell team ever, and I do not want to mess with Iowa State. Iowa State makes it to the playoff, I promise you. Even if they don't win that first game, they're taking a chunk out of whoever team that beats them because that's their style. I do not want to mess with Iowa State. That's going to do it for the top 5. It's time to say goodbye to all our family. MICKEYMOUSE. See you in a minute.
You really need to be drug tested.
No, I'll fail it. I'll fail it.
Well, CBD doesn't count.
I get the...
Or any kind of remnants of it.
Yeah.
All right.
No, okay. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Paul. And the top 5 brought to you by TexasBeefHouse.com. And they currently have yet another auction, the 3rd of this month of October, by going to TexasBeefHouse.com. And I'm telling you right now, the beef product is just amazing, from Wagyu to Angus and steaks to much more. TexasBeefHouse.com. It runs until tomorrow at about this time, a little bit after 6 o'clock, but it's going on right now. Go to TexasBeefHouse.com. We appreciate the Duvall family. Jack McKenzie, thank you, sir. Appreciate that time. Also, Emery Winter is dialing up, editing everything together for tonight's 365 Sports Tonight on the CW. Also, thanks to our sponsors. We appreciate you and those in the chat room, on Twitter, 365 Sports YT, and Sikkim 365 app. Tomorrow, we're back at it. Paul, 1 o'clock, triple option. We're back at it here with this show at 3. Craig Smoak and Paul Catalina. I'm David Smoak. Thank you, and have a great night. This is 365 Sports.